Well, hey, everyone. Let's see what's going on over here. Looks like I'm live now. Top chat, live chat. Hey guys, good to see you. Thanks everyone for subscribing. I see James is coming on there. Appreciate you guys. Just sitting here fighting the cold air in the house. We're still my AC, or I say my AC, my heating unit has gone awry. So for some reason, and Galloway Lights is a heat and air guy. Maybe he'll pop in here. So inside or outside? Right now, inside is 65. Outside, it is 39 right now. So it is kind of cool right now around here. So I got a fire in the fireplace going. That's 65 with the fire in the fireplace and two small space heaters running. And when I say running, I mean they have to be on low, because if it's anything more than low, it's too much electricity and it pops the breakers, because this is an old house. So needs some work done for sure. But yeah, guys, I just I saw where Flower Street Farm asked, were we doing a no life beekeeping chat tonight? And I figured, why not? Why not? We did the one with the UK. I'm sitting here kind of bored. Just trying to keep the house warm. That's what you keep your house at. Oh man, we're a 72 degree family right here. 72 degrees. So we've got things going. I'm gonna go ahead and drop this link. There we go. I dropped that link so I can pin it. If you guys want to come in and hang out, awesome. If not, also awesome. It'll just be a short stream if nobody joins. Usually there's a Charlie around, or a Brian or somebody. Brian hadn't been on in a minute, man. Brian, quit slacking, bro. Let's go. Yeah, I do. The problem is, well, first of all, when this house was built, it didn't have any AC at all, and no heating unit. And this unit that we have outside, I've been doing the limp it along thing, and like the AC went out a few years ago in the summer, so I had to get it fixed. And now it's the heater that's kind of the heater part of it that's giving us the fits. So yeah, so hit it. Let's go. Someone come on in. Glad your status, James. Thank you. I appreciate all the memberships, guys. So yeah, we're just I was outside today cleaning up some boxes, getting my frames organized to see exactly what I have. I have at least 40 frames of drawn comb. At least 4 deets. I got more than that, but at least 40 because I verified that. So I'm gonna have to look that up and get it separated. Had a couple of orders come through today. So and I just dropped one of them. So constantly, swarm lure and the Apis and swarm lure. And they came through today, so they'll go out on Monday. And as usual, we appreciate all that stuff that you guys do. Hey, JND's Bees, how's it going? You got your package today. Cool. So I've got some more stuff coming in. Oh, it's a electric heat pump. And yeah, it's not doing good. So I can, like right now, it's blowing. And I use the word blowing very loosely. You know, the big fan motor, if I turn it off for an hour or so, it'll cool down, and I'll turn it on. It'll stay on for about 2 minutes. And then after that, it's done. It shuts itself off. It stops spinning. So I don't know what's going on with it. It is warm, so the heat strips are working. So there's something between going on in there. I don't know. Don't know what it is. Let me I gotta go in here too. I gotta do something here while we're talking. So trying to keep everything working around here, and also trying to go ahead and get everything normalized from the aspect of how I want to attack this year coming up. Honestly, guys, I thought I would be further along than I am. It has not been a good winter. I've lost a bunch of colonies. No, the blower is going. The blower works. The little blower for the heater, right? That blows over the heat strips. But the big one on a heat pump, there's a valve that switches back and forth on it. But the motor that sucks the air and keeps it cool, or keeps it from, that brings the air over the coils, that's what's not running. But right now, everything else is running. It's just not blowing it out like it should be. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah, you better put some either sugar brick or fondant on it or something. Let me see. And nobody wanted to join tonight, huh? Where's the Charlie when you need him? Or somebody that wants to join in, that we can talk. Let me see if Charlie may not even be available. Let me send him a message. Whoops. Now everybody's got their own shows. Nobody wants to come on. Yeah, it might be I had the capacitor. The outside fan shouldn't run during the heat mode. I thought it always ran on a heat pump. I did. I watched that one video. I watched the second one first, and then the first one was like 40 minutes. So I started watching it, and then I decided to go live. Yeah, see, mine does too. Mine runs all the time down here, if it's on. And when I start it up, it'll run for 2 minutes, then it shuts off. So I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Frank is the heating and air guy. And let me see. I got Google. See, now every time I do something on here, my Google sends me an alert, right? Hey, you know what? Tar Heel Beekeeper is close to 100 subs, guys. If you guys would pop over there, let me see if I can find his channel over here. If you guys could be so inclined, I want to push him over. Is it Beekeeper or Beekeeping? It might be Beekeeper. Let's see. Tar Heel Beekeeper. He's got 84 subs. I'm gonna drop his link. You guys need to go over there and bomb him and say, hey, we sent you over. We sent you over there. And show him some love. See if we can push him over 100. That'd be nice. A nice little thing. If you're not subscribed to him, please do. Let's see. And that's Randall over there, right? Cool. Hey, Keith, how's it going? Oh, okay, cool. Thanks, Brian. And we'll talk beeconomics. If you guys want to talk beeconomics tonight, that'd be a good topic. Or bee economics, beeconomics. And when you get close to 2K, man, you better be like holding lives. Phil, why don't you hop in? I haven't seen you since the show. I want to know your plans, buddy. We're going to... And Charlie says he'll be home in 15 to 20 minutes. So we'll have a few people on, possibly, as time goes by. I didn't really have a plan, per se, for the stream. So it was just more about hanging out and talking with my friends. All y'all friends of mine. And hoping it warms the house up, but it's not doing too good. He has 88 now. Cool. We need to get him going. Let me see. I'll open up another YouTube over here so I can a comment on there too. Say, hey, Bob sent me over. 89? Really? 89, guys? You can do better than that. He's 11 away. We can get him to 100 for sure. 90. Okay, 10 away. 10 away. And we'll get him pumped up. So did you guys catch the live stream from earlier today? That is Tar Heel Beekeeper, spaced apart. Or at Tar Heel Beekeeper 3971. 91. He's 9 away. We're going to push him. We're going to get him to 100. Yeah, you know, we got the closet watchers too that don't thumb up or anything. They just watch, which is cool. It's cool. I got to keep checking my emails because emails get crazy notifications in them now. Security alerts. Let's see. Tar Heel Beekeeping. 94. All right. 6 away, guys. 6 away. If you're not subscribed to the Tar Heel Beekeeper, we're going to push him. I'm going to keep talking about it until we get him to 100. We can't even get Lee to 400. We need to get Lee to 400. 38 colonies. You got more than me, man. I'm going the wrong direction. There's some things that have some things that I realized this year over this winter. Hey, look who we... Brian.
Hey, Bob.
What's up, man?
Not much. How are you?
Well, you know, I'm doing good. I guess I'm alive. That's a good sign.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as the bees, I thought I would be doing better right about now, honestly. And that's the that is the realism, the check, you know, that
Sure.
You start realizing things after the fact, right? Not every mistake you make do you realize right when you make it or within a couple days. Right. So too small splits, number one problem. Number two is all of those nukes that I bought must have had old queens in them.
Yeah, I heard that story.
One of 5 of them is alive, and they were booming. I mean, they were popping during the season, but they just dwindled down. You know, I don't know if she ran out of sperm or what, but she just started, all of them started shrinking down to where they were just gone. And I only have one of the Carney colonies still going. The other colonies, well, pretty much, I mean, that's 5 colonies, and 4 of those were gone, right? So just not a warm and fuzzy winter for my bees, but that's okay. We learned a lot.
Yeah, I tell you, I've had a pretty tough winter too. I've lost, actually, I started by having a tough fall. I lost like 5 colonies in the fall. And then I've lost probably like 3 more this winter as well. So, we'll bounce back. We've got enough bees where we can make splits and come back pretty quickly. So we're not too worried about it. But yeah, we've taken a little bit of a hit too.
So I've kind of in talking with James, he's a stickler, man. Talking to him, he's a super nice guy, but he's not going to let you slide with some halfway answer, right?
Right.
So I can't say when he says, "Well, what's your goal?" And I say, "Well, I want to grow my bees," but
yeah, it's too vague.
But I would like to have 300 pounds of, that's what I had last year, 300 pounds ish of honey, right? Well, he won't let me go that way. It's like, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to grow your bees or are you going to grow honey? Because there's 2 different plans, right? So I said, well, I guess I want to grow my colonies. Okay, so now how are we going to do that, right? So that's where we go. Now, honey is just if you look at it from that aspect, honey is just a lovely byproduct of having bees. You're going to get honey, right? There's going to be honey, but not going for a target amount of honey. It's just be happy with what you get on honey and grow your bees. So next year, you do have that honey, which is kind of what I thought I was doing last year, but I wasn't very effective at it. I did a lot of things, right? Sold queens, sold nukes, sold, all this stuff. But in doing that, I don't think I focused hard enough on ensuring my colonies were strong enough going into winter that they would make it. So,
sure.
So that's where the realism check is, right? It's not for me, it's not a competition as far as, ooh, Brian's got 50 colonies and I only got 15. That's not it, right? We're all in different levels and different stages. And, if you got 1 colony, maybe your goal is to get to 2 colonies or 3 colonies.
Right.
I just, in my mind, had envisioned, because of all the 2 framers and everything I had last year, that I would be further ahead than I am right now. Yeah. And maybe it was unrealistic. Actually, it turned out to be unrealistic, right? So it's a little bit of a smack in the face where you start questioning everything, which is kind of where I was when I was talking to James. And, he said, hey, step back. You're doing things right. You're still ahead of where you were, but maybe you're not where, well, he said, first of all, you never had a goal of where you wanted to be. So you can't judge where you're at based on a goal that you never had. Right. You know what I'm saying? So that makes sense. It's like, you're right. I can't. I have more than I had when I came into last year. So it's a win right now. Not as
so you talk about how much drawn comb you have. How much drawn comb do you have as far as honey super frames?
I'm still like dividing it out. I've got I've still got some supers on, right? I've probably got 10 boxes of drawn comb.
Okay.
So maybe 100 frames,
Yeah. So if I were you, and you're thinking maybe increase more, maybe how much honey you go for is determined by the honey supers that you've got drawn out, and you plan to expand a little bit as far as your honey frames go, but 10 boxes will get you what?
100
4 colonies, that would be good honey producers. So maybe thinking in that kind of mindset, because you put so much money into your honey production line,
Right.
and you've yet to see that pay off. You've got to make that reap dividends at some point.
Yeah, but if you don't have the bees, all that
Yeah,
other stuff is
that,
for naught, right? So
that's right.
you gotta take yourself back to, okay, it would be lovely if that was the case, but it's not the case. So what do we need to do to get it to that point, right?
Right, right.
And
That's
getting
why
it
maybe put a couple aside based on how many honey supers you've got already drawn out, because they're going to pack that out really nicely. So you get some honey, and then the
right.
rest you focus on increase.
And James has showed me a bunch of tools. As far as like, I might be able to pull it up. I had it up. Hold on, let me see if I can get it.
Yeah.
Uh, it's and you've probably used it already because you're a smarter guy than me. So if you go to Randy Oliver's site, right? He's got. Let me pull it over here.
You're talking about his Varroa model?
No, this one, share screen. This one here, share that screen. This thing. Have you seen it? This page, the nuke model buildup. Is that it? No,
No, I
not.
don't think so.
Let me go back one. I think it's handy starting colony buildup calculator. This thing. And then it takes me back. Where is it? Calculation stimulation models. Maybe I have to actually hit read more.
There, that bottom one's the one I'm familiar with.
This one?
The Randy's Varroa model on your previous page. And that's the one that Ian Stepler was playing with in that previous video, or a recent video.
Oh,
And that's a cool one.
This is the one. Oh, I didn't need it to download, but okay. Let's open it. Now it probably won't show because it's a different tab, which is correct. All right, so let me stop that real quick. Stop that screen share. And now re-screen share. Window. Let's do it that way. This one. All right, so this right here, you put in some stuff, right? So figuring on when your honey flow starts. And this tells you how many frames you need to split with, and you'd have to play enable editing. Sorry. Oh, damn, it just dropped again. Hold on. You can see Lee's not here, right? That's real obvious. All right.
But
So
it kind of calculate how big a nukes you can make, or how big a splits you can make, and the impact, and how big they'll grow, and how quick they'll grow.
Yep. So this line would designate when your start of your honey flow is, right?
Yeah.
And then it works backwards. So if you need 4 frames of brood, let's say, and it tells you if you're putting in a laying queen or a queen cell or a walk away split, however you're doing it, right? So 4 frames of brood, if it was a laying queen, you would way peak past the honey flow, right? So I don't think it'll let me do less than 3, or it might let me do 3. No, it's telling me I have to do 4. But let's say it was a walk away. Then it's going to show you that if you draw this out, it's pretty close to peaking, right? And you would say, well, my honey flow, let's say, starts April 1st or April 15th, and then you could back up the number of days to where you need to make the split with that walk away for it that colony to peak at honey flow. So if you can do it early, or let's say we put in a cell, it's going to change the numbers, right, when it peaks. So you could actually, work this number. If you needed to be here, then that's like 42 days it peaks. So you could start from here and go back 42 days and get the colony to peak right about the right time. And there's a bunch of different stuff you guys can play around with. But you download the spreadsheet and plug in your numbers, and it already does the calculations for you based on the data that Randy Oliver's put in the spreadsheet. So I find it pretty interesting. It says right here, you won't be able to see it on the screen, but it says calculated average daily increase in adult bees over 72 days. And it says it uses Nolan's data that 750 a day is realistic under perfect conditions. So I guess that's a net gain between bees that are dying and bees that are being hatched, right, of 750 a day. So that's kind of interesting numbers, right?
So, Bob, last night on Charlie's talk, you guys, I think it was Brad that brought up some of Randy Oliver's talks.
Yes.
And it's the Ulster Beekeepers Association. And they have a couple of great talks from him.
I did watch that video.
Which one did you watch?
The one that you linked. It was the same chat information, but it might have been a different one than.
Yeah. And there's another one called Produce a Good Nuke and Use It Well. And I think in that presentation, he talks through the model that you just showed. So he'll give them different demonstrations and talk about if you do a split at this time, this is how much it's going to grow, and here's this growth. It's pretty cool.
And that's based on, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, that chart is 100% based on that split being at full size in time for the honey flow, right? Okay. So obviously, if you're making splits, but you're not worried about making honey at that point, you just know that you're going to need to supplemental feed, which we're going to do anyway, right? But we're trying to get that colony nice and strong for winter, whether it produces honey or not, like the 3x6 thing with the nukes. I'm going to do that, but I'm going to use that, hopefully, knock on wood, not to produce honey, but to produce drawn comb, right? Just keep the feed on them, keep them coming up and drawing that comb out. Now, if they draw some honey in there, I'm not going to be mad at them, but you know what I mean? You can just cycle those frames out and let them just draw comb if you keep the feed on them. You might get them robbed too. I mean, that's always a potential, but I mean, I don't think if they did rob and come through a 6-frame nuke to get into 18 frames of bees in 20 frames box, it'd be kind of hard for them to get robbed out, I would think.
I've been enjoying your license stories the past couple weeks.
Well, you gave me the dimensions of the nuke box, and I assumed, heaven forbid, that they make the same dimensions on their 10 frame that they would use for their 6 frame.
It's a fair assumption.
And but it was different. So now I did order 7/8 wood boxes from Better Bee, 2 of them, just 2.
Yep.
After those 2, I'll start stacking wood boxes on there. I'm not worried about that. I just don't want the water to come in to the brood chamber, right?
Okay.
So
that was my question. Why didn't you just take 2 like 3/4 boxes and just kind of center them so there'll be like a little lip on either side, right? That doesn't work.
I haven't tried putting wood boxes on there, but what it does, if I do that, then you've got a lip for water to sit on between the wood box and the poly. Okay. So I thought that might create a little water ledge where it can wick in, right? So I was trying to not do that, but we'll see. I'm sure you'll see all kinds of crazy stuff on that.
And I almost made a comment this afternoon, Bob, in the international one about once again the double nuke support colonies. You could basically do the same thing with those, and you could have kept your, like, it's the KISS like idea, right? Keep it simple, right? I use those for so many different things, and here's another thing that you could use it for. You could put a 10 frame deep on top of 2 4/4s and have them share that 10 frame deep too. So,
well, last year I found out that if I had 2 2-framers side by side, that a 5-framer would fit on top of it. Kind of not, kind of over with the overhang thing we were talking about, but
leave that light on, please.
But it did it did work. So let me see. I'm trying to catch it. Would like to do a poll. What queen do you like the most, and what state do you live in? I'm in South Carolina, and right now, my Italian bees far outdo my Carney bees that I had here. Now, I'm not saying that the Carney's a bad breed. Don't misunderstand that, because a lot of people love them, and I'm not saying they're not good. What I'm saying is my Carney bees that I got this year in the nukes did not do well. And that could be because they were old, right? The queens were old, which is what we're suspecting. That old, overwintered nukes are overwintered nukes, supposedly from last year's queen. But there's no guarantee it's last year's queen, right? They might have had that queen in a box producing for however long and then made it into a nuke, and then you just got whatever they got, right? Technically, it's overwintered, just not a new overwinter. So you just don't know at that point. So I'm serious. This week, I'm probably gonna, maybe even tomorrow. I don't know if the weather it's supposed to be nice weather all week this week. I'm probably gonna make a cell builder in a 6-frame poly box, and I'm probably gonna use it as a starter finisher for just my noobness of being grafting, right? And take my grafted frame, go ahead and graft up 30 frame or 30 cells. What do I have to lose? Nothing.
Yep. Yeah. I'll tell you, one of my biggest problems when wanting to start queen rearing is I read and I read and I read and I read way too much.
Paralysis.
That's right. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what the best way is. And then finally, I just had to pick one and go for it. And that's really how you get practice.
And we talked about, do I need 30 queens? Probably not. But the chances of me getting 30 queens is very slim, right?
Yeah, so, you worry about too many queens when you have them.
Right.
That's a good problem to have.
James said it today on that international stream too. He said, well, what's the worst case scenario? So let's say you get 50% if you're lucky. 50% first take. So I got 15, right? So now I'm looking at having to make 15 of my 2-frame nukes up, right? Or he said, let's say you get all 30 of them. You make 32 frame nukes up, right? Yep. Or 29, because you can leave one queen cell with your starter finisher and make it a nuke right there. Boom.
Or you could split it down and make several out of it if it's big enough.
So, and that was the other option, right? You could take 4 frames out of that probably and make your 4 or 5 of your 2-framers, right? Then you go and grab some bees out of your colonies, another few. He said, so let's say half of those come back and half of them don't, right? So now you got 30 nukes set up, but you got 15 that came back. You got 15 queens now. Well, you just merge those other 15 that were sitting there with the other ones. Now you got a small nuke you could set up. So, I mean, those are things that I really haven't processed, right? That was not my focus before. So now I'm starting to try to shift that focus over there to make that happen. So different mindset.
I was going to say, at some point in the season, you need to transition your thinking about what you're doing with those queens and those small colonies. You have to start preparing them for winter. Either it's replacing old queens and putting them in a bigger colony, or robbing resources out of a bigger colony to give them big enough to overwinter. So that's, again, another thing I do with those double nucleus colonies is I'll do part of the summer, I'll just have them as 3-frame colonies. So I'll have 3 frames in either side and a frame feeder. So they stay as 3-frame, basically mating nukes, and I'll roll queens through them a couple of times. And then at some point, I'll get to the point where I'm done using queens, and I'll stack another box on them and start feeding them up to get to winter. And then I'll overwinter them double stacked. And then after I do my late summer treatments, if I ever have any queen losses from there, I still have all of those colonies that I could use to requeen them, but but they're ready for winter if I don't need them.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing, that right now you're not sure. At least I'm not sure in my apiary the age of all my queens, right? As we talked about with those nukes I bought.
Right.
I'm pretty sure 3 of them they're going into their second year. So my 3 strongest colonies that are really slamming it out there, pretty sure they're in my second year. I'm pretty sure that some of the queens that I got from the breeder were not bred very well, and not their fault. It's really my fault for buying them the time of the year that I bought them, right? If you can get queens earlier, your odds go up that they were mated correctly. And right. And so that is one of those things that I did a few things backwards, like the Chestnut Grove. I was happy to put some bees down there. I went in at it kind of half-heartedly, right? Small nukes, didn't know what to expect. And I look back at my videos when I put them out there, it was May. It's in the dearth. Why would I put nukes, brand new nukes, in a new yard in the middle of a dearth? If I was going to do that, it would be better to made the splits right now, or take some of my overwintered nukes down to that yard and drop them in there and let them go while they can build up and, grab pollen and nectar from that area. And it was just the wrong time. So did they fail because of outside stuff? Yeah, the outside stuff was me. I mean, right. Hey, I'm admitting. I mean, it's stuff that when I get overzealous, right? So if somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, we'd love to have bees on our place," great. I'm throwing them in the truck, like ready to take them. And I don't stop to say, yeah, maybe not right now. Maybe we need to wait till the spring to do that.
I've learned those lessons too. Yeah, I've been the eager beekeeper as well that said yes to everybody, especially at markets. You get so many customers who are like, "Oh, I love bees. Wouldn't you like to put bees on my backyard?" And at first I was just taking every opportunity because that helped me grow. I needed space to put bees. Right. But I learned really quickly that not every space was a good space. Not every situation was a good situation. And saying, I learned to trust my instincts. Sometimes there was a couple times where I said yes, where I was like not sure about it, and I said yes anyway. And then I walked away going, "Oh, I should have said no right from the beginning." So that gave me confidence to say no when something just didn't feel right in the future.
Yeah, so Silver Girl says those splits were pretty weak too. Yes, but I even said it in the video. I did that by design because I didn't know if the strawberry field across the street was going to wipe them out, right? From fungicides or whatever they're spraying. So yeah, that absolutely. They were weak and didn't give them a good fighting chance over there. I should have, if I would have just took strong ones over there and let them do their thing, then probably would have been a better outcome. But more than the time of year, had I brought them over there really in the spring instead of after the main honey flow, would have been a different situation. So am I going to take bees back there? Absolutely planning to. The thing is that I need to make sure my yard is squared away before I start taking stuff to other yards, right?
And there's no need to travel if you have the space right in your backyard.
Right. Now, they were happy because for the first time ever, their chestnuts won the blue ribbon at the state fair. Just happened to be the same year that they had bees out there. It's funny how that works, and so we're trying, we're still going to try, we're going to give it our best effort. and hopefully we can get some things done. I know I've got at least a minimum of just what I've set aside already, 40 drawn frames of comb. And I haven't even cleared out all of my nuke boxes and all that, the 2 framers. I haven't cleared all that out. It's still out there. So I'm emptying those boxes, putting them in 10 frame deeps so I can get an accurate count, pulling out the ones that weren't drawn out so I could take them in and recoat them with wax and get them ready to go. Yeah, so, you know, I thought that Chestnut Grove was going to be great because, first of all, it's a chestnut grove. I mean, it's 15 acres of chestnuts right there. And there's a pond down the street a little bit, so it should have water. There's, you know, wild vegetation just like I have over here. So I felt like it was going to be a good thing. And it very well could have been. You know, the damn strawberry patch is literally right across the main road. So, you know, you figured that if they pollinate the strawberries and they're doing chestnuts, man, they should be booming. But I didn't give them the cool. Just got him to 100.
Nice.
So that's a good feeling. Then he's going to end up being like old Grayson there. He had 24 when we started shouting him out. Now he's at 400 and something and forgot all about us. He's got more than Lee does now.
Who, Grayson?
Grayson has more subs than Lee does now. He'll probably end up getting more than me too. So it's all good. It's not a race. It's a steady grind is what we're doing here.
You know, Bob, I haven't been on for a while. I've been listening most times, but man, you guys have had such great guests on. I figured, man, listening is the best thing for me because I've learned so much the past couple of weeks from the guys you've had on. Been great conversations.
The last 2 weeks, you know, if you get too many people on, it becomes not diluted, but it gets hard to follow because, you know, people start talking at the same time. Not that they're meaning to, but it just gets, you know what I mean, kind of crazy. So that's why the last 2 weeks when we had people on, we didn't even drop a link because, you know, Ian, James, and Brad, hell, I was able to sit back and take a lesson, right?
You wanted those guys talking as much as possible.
Yeah.
You didn't want other people talking. You wanted them talking to each other.
So
Phil, that was awesome. I love that guy's channel. I didn't know he had that many colonies, but I love Phil the Bee Man. He was great to have on. You
know what? I know that I've seen him come up in my feed, but for whatever reason, I was not subscribed. And I did after, you know, then I did do it and been going back and watching his videos and watching some of his tests that he does when he dipped the wax foundation in the wax and put it in there, and they very clearly drew that one side out and stopped right at the line, you know. So you definitely have to wax those frames to get that. Now these new frames I just got from Better Bee, they've got wax all over them. I mean, on top cake, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, should I just wax right over top of those or what? You know,
that's definitely made me think about my frames because I've never put wax on frames that have already been waxed. But hearing the folks talk about how they really believe in it, I mean, it makes a difference. You put they start drawing out those frames, they're going to fill them up, and if they don't, they're going to ignore them. So it really makes a huge difference. So if it matters, it's worth it.
Well, then the other part is, do you have enough wax to do it? Because it's not, I mean, you seem like you're not putting that much wax on them.
Oh, but it does, yeah.
But the wax that's in your little crock pot deal is definitely going down, right? It's definitely shrinking. So now I'm like, I don't know if I got enough wax to do all these. I'm gonna be buying wax from people or going down to my mentor and getting some off of him. But he even had to buy wax because he's gone through all of his wax and he doesn't even use foundation. He just strings it up and runs wax along the top, you know?
Oh, starter strip?
No, he takes. Well, I don't have a. I took my wood frame. Okay, so you got the wedge top where you can snap the piece off. He
Yep.
snaps the piece off and puts it in the gap, and then he just runs. He just takes his beeswax and coats that wood strip and
Okay.
uses it as a starter strip, and then has it strung with fishing line. And they will draw it out, but
Yeah.
they're not drawing it out in any timely fashion that I've seen. Because they got to festoon and then they make it, and then eventually it just starts filling up, and eventually it gets there. But don't put the wax on too early, about 2 weeks before you need them. All right.
Keep it fresh. Yeah.
Well,
I've done that, Bob, with wax foundation. I'll cut like an inch strip and then do the same thing, adhere it with melted beeswax, and you pour it in, and it sets it up pretty nicely.
well, now I see Brad doing those story frames where he cuts them in half. So every piece of foundation, really, you could do twice as many frames with it.
I like saving money.
I mean, they're still going to draw that outside, right?
And I've done foundationless frames for similar reasons, but they get a little trickier because if they don't start attaching it on the sides and it gets too heavy, they can actually collapse from the weight.
Right.
So I've used fishing wire, and then once they attach everything, then I'll pull out the fishing wire. But I like to give. Yeah, go ahead.
I just saw James say Better Bees wax is on sale, $7.50 a pound plus shipping.
That's a pretty good deal. I know Day Dance is usually like 11 a pound, and if you buy like 14 of them, it's $150, so you get free shipping from there.
That's the shipping part built into the price of the.
Yep, that's right.
It's getting cool, so I'm gonna throw my jacket over my hoodie.
Would you lose your heat? Is that what happened?
Heat's out, and we do have a fire going in there, but I have the door closed on my office so the noise doesn't come in. But yeah, so the wax, there's a lot of stuff, man. And I lost focus last year, and that's what kind of is costing me right now. It's the school of hard knocks of beekeeping. I mean, it is costing me, And when I say that, could I go down and buy queens right out of the gate? Yep, I sure could. I could go down there and buy queens. But you know what? I'm not learning how to rear queens if I keep going down there and buy queens. So I'm always going to be beholden to another beekeeper and the quality of queens that he generates, right? So even cells, I think even if I went and got cells, I would be better off than buying the queens.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's just decisions, right? I want to do the grafting, so it's like, but if they can get the queens at that time, yeah, obviously I don't know what their success rate is, right? I'm sure it's pretty high, but I can just go there. If I need 30 queens, I can just go buy 30 queens and be queen cells and be done with it. Which was my initial thing I was going to do. I was just going to buy the queen cells, make those splits, let them come back mated, see what I have. And in the process, go ahead and graft some. So I wasn't, dependent on my skill for that. But then it's like, well, I could just graft them. It's like the same thing. I can always find an excuse not to graft, right? I could always.
Not this year. We're gonna bug you this year.
Oh yeah,
you won't get away with it this year.
I'm gonna get it done. Matter of fact, I was contemplating literally setting up my cell builder tomorrow. And that way, if I do that and then I go back in a few days and make sure there's no queen cells in there, then it's a matter of picking up a frame with the correct larva on it, grafting it and dropping it in, right?
So I got inspired by you a little bit from your queen stuff last year. This is the first year I've actually bought bees. I'm usually the guy saying buy equipment, not bees, right?
Queens, right? I was like,
yeah, that's not usually my MO, but I figured my entrepreneurial spirit got the best of me. We're actually going through some expansion a little bit this year. So, as we experienced some loss over the winter, I figured at the very least they're going to help me recover immediately and not have to worry about growing up. So, we're going to be adding like 20 colonies to our apiaries. So we've got a need for more queens, right? But I'll be doing queen rearing just like you as well. I catch a lot of swarms just, all the time. But I figured at the worst case scenario, I can start them in nukes. I can start them in my double support colonies and then bank them there, let them lay up frames and then sell them to other beekeepers here. I can make money off of them and I can make frames of brood off of them while I'm banking them. So for
Thank you,
me, I
sir.
figure it was an investment and it was a win-win situation, kind of inspired by how you were playing around last year.
Well, I mean, that goes back to the beeconomics, right? It's trying to be as I'm not a rich guy. I know it might look that way sometimes when you see these big shiny toys or stuff, but hey, this is the first time was Hive Life that I actually went into credit card debt to buy something for my apiary. And after I did it, I'm going to call it buyer's remorse, but I broke my own rule, right? I broke my own rule at Hive Life when I was trying to stay no credit card debt for beekeeping.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying I don't use a credit card, but then pay it off immediately. But I don't accumulate debt that I carry from month to month, which
Right.
now I have. So now I'm
Right.
in a little bit of a setback of that, right?
When we started our business, we got a credit card to go with the business, and it came with like you spend $5,000 in the next 3 months, and we'll give you a $700 bonus. And for a lot of people, that's like bait, right? To get you hooked onto having a huge amount of credit card debt.
Right.
But for us, it was like, all right, it's January. We have tons of expenses we can put in this year, put it right on this credit card, and really easily get $700 back. So that was a sweet way for us to start. And we're a lot like you, where we just reinvest in our business. We don't go into credit card debt at all.
Well,
We're spending our profits.
This is gonna look. This is how simple I am, guys. I know most of you have never been to my house, probably will never come to my house, but I've got a canister. You can hear the change in there, right? But all of my honey money gets put in the jar, right? So when I need queens, I go down there and I'm like, shh. When I need feed, I go up the domino, and this is the cash that I use to do those things. So it's not, I don't go up the domino and say, can you please run my debit card? No, I hand them cash. I hand them cash when I go to the queen place. And that's not a brag. I mean, I'm not bragging about that. I'm just trying to show that it's not like I keep that money. That money is constantly getting recycled back in hopes that one day I can say, okay, I've got enough. My boxes are full. Now let's work with what we got. Or, if I need this or that, then I can get it. But that's why I didn't go to Hive Life. I knew I would want too much. Hey, you know what? I didn't get that much at Hive Life. I wasn't Brian. Brian bought the whole damn place. But
I bought a lot of little stuff.
But you bought stuff you needed that's going to return that money back to you.
Mostly.
You didn't buy a damn bottling machine for $1,500 when you had a pneumatic air valve.
No, but I can't wait to see yours go. I can't wait, Bob. I'm excited.
I've got, believe it or not, I've got almost 30 frames, and I could find three, 4 more frames, 5 frames of honey to run my extractor again. But once I do that, I'll do a little demonstration. But ouch, the Domino sugar is so much cheaper than going to Walmart. Okay, so 25 pounds of sugar will make 5 gallons of 1-to-1. All right, here, right. Take down the math. Let's do the math right here. I don't know if I can show my calculator on the screen. Let's see. Calculator. All right, calculator. Let's put it on this other screen. I'll share the whole thing. Hold on. Present, share screen, window. Oh, and I can just show the calculator. Bam, look at this. All right. So if it's $16 for one, right? $16 for 25 pounds, that makes 1 5-gallon pail, right? So let's say 5 gallons divided by $16 is
16 divided by 5.
Yeah, you're right. Hold on. Sorry.
Like
16 divided by 5 is $3.20 a gallon, right? So I go down there and for $10, I buy 5 gallons of 2 to 1, right? So that makes 10 gallons of 1 to 1 divided by $10 that I pay per bucket is $1 a gallon.
So now you're costing yourself time to drive there and gas, but you're also saving yourself and not having to make that syrup. So
yep,
sounds like a really good deal.
Yeah, I mean, it does take me some time and maybe a couple hours. But you know what? Every time I go, I stop off at Dennis Lentz and talk to him, and we talk bees. So $1 a gallon, though. I mean, you can't beat it. I mean, not at today's rates. I mean, you got to have the bucket. So I got free buckets that I use, so that doesn't cost me anything. But yeah, and it doesn't go bad in the bucket until you mix it with water. It doesn't go bad. At least I have never had it go bad. And
and that's going to be one of my big bottlenecks that I'm going to have to figure out how to address is making syrup and delivering syrup to my hives. Right now I'm making syrup out of a 10-gallon water cooler, that's got a spigot put into it that I got from like a brewery store.
Right.
So I'm making 10-gallon batches at a time. And then I'm emptying it into gallon iced tea jugs. So I'm bringing gallons at a time to wherever I'm going. And it just takes forever just to make the syrup to get it to wherever I need it to.
Charles.
Hey, Charlie.
Hey.
How's it going?
All right. You'll have to set the thing up like I do, where you got 40-gallon tank, you mix in it, and then put and get yourself a tank at Tractor Supply.
Yeah, but
mix it a little lighter than 2 to 1 in order for it to pump.
I'm hesitant to go to that big tank, though. I'm looking for something in between because I don't want a big tank on the back of my
40
truck.
gallon is not that big of a tank.
Okay.
It's I've got it mounted on a strap down on a 4x4 pallet, so it's small. It's probably maybe 3.5 feet wide, long.
Okay.
What it was a lawn sprayer tank is what it was. And I cut the nozzle off the end of it and put a 1/4 turn valve in it with a little pipe on the end. Works wonderful. The only thing of it is trying to fill it and pump. You're going to have to get a pump or some kind of if you have, if you make a mix, if you come up with one of them mixing tanks where you don't heat the water, you just put hot water in there. And then I don't know. Let's see there's several people we got a pipe going up and across and down, and right at the top you got a T valve in there with a hose connection. You can pump that right up into that 40-gallon tank. And then I just hooked it up to this year. I just instead of the battery, I hooked it right up to my lights that you would use for a trailer. A small trailer, like those little 4-pin jobs, it just kind of fits in there like that. And turn your parking lights on, and you got power to your pump. The only thing I find is ever so often you got to tear the pump, take it apart where the diaphragm is in there, and wash it because it gets sticky, I guess you would say.
Okay.
and it won't pump efficiently. But once you wash it, it's right back to like brand new. And it's only like 6 screws you take out and take it in your sink and wash it, and you're done. It's no interlocking parts or very small parts or anything. Because I think what it is, it just kind of goes like that to pump.
Well,
So do you keep your tank on the back of your truck?
I put the tank on the I strapped my pallet to the 4 corners of my truck,
Okay.
and then I strapped the tank to the pallet. What I did was I put some eye hooks in there. I think I put 3 eye hooks into the two at one side and 1 in the middle on the opposite side of the tank, and then I just run them little red ratchet straps. You buy a pack of 4 of them from Home Depot.
Yep.
And just run them through there, and they're the way that tank is made. There's like 2 little ears where you're supposed to wrap the hose around it, where you can crisscross the darn straps like that. It stays right on the pallet, and then I take the a strap in the front and a strap in the back through the eye hooks and hold it in place on the truck. On the
you know what
pickup.
Sam does? Sam's got one of those Tractor Supply flat carts, right?
Trailer.
Yeah.
A little trailer, the little one that you can just buy for like $100 and something bucks. And he pulls that thing behind his riding lawnmower, his little riding lawnmower. But,
Yeah.
but he's got a bucket on there that's been tapped, and it's up high, right? So he can actually turn the
gravity
valve
fed
up his other dishes and stuff to put it on, or he feels
Yeah, but
pours it. But
with Brian here, he's got to go, and he got the multiple yards. The only
But
thing is,
go ahead, Charlie. Go ahead.
Don't you have multiple yards? The only problem is you got to be able to drive up around your hives in order to make it.
Yeah, I can't drive up to my hives. I can't stick something at, like, I can't get a gasoline pump thing. That's not my setup. So like, Charlie, with your setup, are you keeping that tank in the back of your truck all summer?
Only in the fall.
Okay, just for fall feeding?
Yeah, I just feed in the fall and be done with it.
Okay.
The so yeah, people are asking about the way the syrup that I mix my syrup, and maybe it's not exactly 1-to-1, but I find that they don't care.
Close enough.
The bees don't care, so I just take a 5-gallon bucket and an empty 5-gallon bucket and dump half in each side, mix my apis, right? Put my apis in, and then I use the water to mix it up. Now I may not I don't go all the way to the top, because those buckets aren't marked for 5 gallons. So I just kind of get it to where that fat rim is, to the bottom of it, when I'm mixing the sugar water, and that's where I stop. So whatever that is, that's what they get, and they suck it down. So, and
that's close enough for me.
Yep. I just take a truckload of 5-gallon buckets up there with lids and unload the 5-gallon buckets onto the ground. They bring the hose and they fill them up with the syrup. I cap it up, put them back in the truck, and carry them home.
I wanted to tell you guys, I put a call into our local bee place. That's the Better Bee store, and I talked to them about a 30 frame lysin and the creaming attachment today. So I figured I might as well buy it now, so I have it for the season.
So you got a 30 frame extractor and a creaming machine?
Well, they're gonna call Better Bee, get me a quote on the price. So I'm just letting you guys know. I called them and said, let's do this.
If you want, well, I don't know, we might be able to work something out. Let me call Canada. I'll send a message to Canada and be like, they knocked $500 off of that mini line for me as a dealer price. So it took it from $36.5 to $36, but that should cover, I don't know what it would be on another extractor, but but that would be something as well, that maybe it's something that they would get you a good price on with that Canadian conversion they got going on right now.
So
Well,
you're talking about a creaming tank, right? And an
No, he's
extractor.
got
no, just the
the
attachment to go on top of the bottling tank I already have. So that was my plan, to just buy it in
Okay.
2 parts. So I bought the tank last year, and I'm going to buy the creaming attachment this year,
And a 30 frame extractor.
and the 30 frame license. And here's another thing that's so beneficial about these conversations. I decided I'm not going to sell my 9 frame electric. I'm going to keep it around as a backup.
after I told
Thank you. Yeah, it's a great idea.
after I
Because I
said,
mean, it's depreciated so much already. It's an asset worth keeping. So
well, the thing is that I find is like when I pull off a box, it's not enough to run my 30 frame in. So I end up saving the honey till I have enough to spin.
yep.
And,
And I manage other people's colonies. So sometimes I just have a box or 2 to spin for them. So when you explain that rationale, I was like, well, of course I need to keep it.
of
It's
course,
not
I
even a
figured that out
question now.
after I gave mine away, right? That's when I figure mine out.
Well,
So once again, thank you guys.
you say the bee supply company that where you live at is Better Bee, or are they just a dealership, or what?
No, they're a dealer. Yeah, so they sell Better Bee stuff. So when I got the other stuff, the tank and the uncapping tank, they actually got me a really good deal. Like I originally tried calling Better Bee directly, and they gave me a shipping price of $1,000 to ship both of those things out to me. So at that point, I was like kind of disgruntled, and I said, forget it. And then I kind of sat on it for like 3 months, and then I figured I'd call the store, and they got me a pretty smoking deal. So I'm going to go back through them.
Well, if that's the case, that's the way to go.
Yeah. And they're like 60 miles south of us. So it's a nice little road trip down there. Pick up some gear and drive back.
So if this is accurate, it's saying $3,095 Canadian is what that 30 frame extractor is selling for at Dancing Bee, which with no discount is $2,328 US.
Okay.
So,
and is that the bottom model? You know how they have different models?
Same one I've got with the red around it.
Yep.
Yeah. So I guess that is the bottom. The bottom.
Yeah, that's the one. That's what I'm getting. You're happy with that, Bob? You have no complaints?
Yep, no complaints. The only thing I would do that I haven't done is bolted down. Because I run deeps and mediums, so that has a tendency to have it off kilter, right? But
I have mine. I have a 9 frame Hilco, and that thing danced around so much until I bolted it to a pallet, and then that solved it immediately. And if it ever got a little wonky, I would just take a cinder block and put it on the pallet right underneath the extractor just to add weight to it right underneath it. And that was it. I didn't have to worry about anything after that.
So what do you think about those Hilco Chinese outfits?
I got the very first year one, Charlie. So the very first year they were out, I got the 9 frame. It was a good deal. It was it's paid for itself several times over. I've had a problem with it with the coupler broke, and John was great about the customer service. You know, it's actually kind of small, so the space between the steel and the basket isn't that great. I wish it was a little greater. I like how the gate is on the bottom. It's actually on the bottom of it, and that helps it drain out really well. It definitely, I don't have much to compare it to be honest. I'm guessing I'm going to be really happy as I step up with my next one. You know, it served me well, Charlie. I get a sense it's not the top shelf line, you know, but it's served me well.
It filled its need.
Absolutely. And when I had problems,
30 frame is what's got the valve or the neck on the side. You're still going to have to probably tilt the darn thing.
Yeah.
Well, even the Lyson, I find I do have to tilt it a little bit. It does have a conical shaped bottom, right? So it does bring it down to the edge. But usually
you gotta
yeah. So when I'm done, what I do is since mine's not bolted down right now, I just take a piece of 2x4,
Tip it,
and just shove the 2x4 in and forget about it and come back the next day and get the rest out, you know?
Yep.
That's what I do.
But that's kind of what I've been doing. The last batch that I extracted out, I didn't use my uncapping tank. Because I didn't want to clean it back out again, right? But you know, the only thing, and Sebastian over in the UK did make a good point about the motor being on top, but it's an electric motor. It's not a oil or gas engine, right? So it's like you don't really have to worry about debris from that going in there, like oil like that. But the motor being on top, that's what I really like about my Lyson, is that it doesn't have it on the top. The motor's under the bottom, so it's out of the way. And everything that I saw is if you let's say it's belt driven. So if the belt breaks, you just go down to AutoZone or somewhere and buy a new belt to put on it, and it's easy to repair. And
well, it's like Russ there talks about, it's better than these 3-frame hand crank. I don't understand people. Why would you even consider?
Why would you think that's a good idea?
Why would you even think that's a good idea to buy a hand crank? I never could understand that.
I
remember back in 2019, people were coming to me, what should I buy? You know, this hand crank or this, you know, $300 more for the electric motor model. And I said, is this 19 or this ain't 1920? This is 2019.
Well,
you know, the age of electricity.
Ever used a homemade ice cream maker where they've had to crank it? Yeah. No,
yeah, I did that as a kid.
And this was my thing when I started. I'm like, well, I only got a couple colonies. I don't need that big of an extractor. That's the rationale I went into, right? I don't need that big of an extractor, but I knew that I wasn't going to hand crank. That was just, I knew I wasn't going to do that.
You can't get it out.
But I bought a cheap Chinese one, you know, and that's the one that I donated to the bee club in the upstate, and I'm good with that. And you know, we all start where we can start, you know. So I guess if it was I couldn't afford or couldn't get anything else, then hand crank it would have been, but I would have hated every second of it, you know.
Yeah.
So for me, I started when I just had a couple of hives, just doing crush and strain. I was like, I'm not buying anything if I've just got 1 or 2 hives.
Yeah.
And then when I got to the point where I wanted to extract honey, then I borrowed an extractor from a local club that I was a member of, because that was one of the services they offered.
Yeah.
Never did I didn't want a hand crank at all. So I went from crush and strain to a 9-frame electric. So it felt pretty good from the start. And like you said, Charlie, too, I'm going to the 30. I'm just skipping right over the 20 because it's going to save me time in the long run. I don't know if you guys heard the conversation with Nathan and Bob Binney about starting the bee business conversation.
I started it, but I didn't. I got tired.
Yeah, you should listen to it, Bob. You know, Bob at one point talked about investing in his Cowan line and how if he had done it at this point in his career, it would have been a mistake. But doing it at this point, he could justify it because he could see how it was going to pay for itself in the upcoming years.
Well, that's like Bob explained. He went to the you know, the professional conference, you know, and Cowan was there, and Cowan brought a big machine there, you know, and he didn't want to take that thing home with me. That cost money.
Right.
And he cornered Bob. Bob was asking a bunch of questions and nobody would bite on that thing. And he said, you're going to buy this thing, you know, we're going to make a deal here, some kind of, you know, financing and whatever. And he did.
Well,
you know.
My thought was, okay, so I went from, it was an 8-4, right? So it was 8 mediums radial or 4 deep tangential, right?
That's what I bought. I bought a guy out, spent $800. I bought a Max Ant 3100. Now it was the older basket where you had these clips, but they never really worked. Now the ones they got now have like little, I don't know, teeth in there that hold that frame in there and stuff like that.
Well, the thing was, and you don't realize it when you buy it, right? Because obviously you're new, you haven't been in bee chats, you haven't talked to people like Charlie and Brian that have said, "Hey, don't do that." You know, that's no.
Well, there was
touch it. And,
there was no bee chat and there was no Zoom or anything like that. You know,
and
I mean, think about it. None of this was on board until COVID came along and forced everybody to go.
Well, if you think about it, most everybody runs 10 frames, some increment of 10 frames, whether it's 5, 10, you know, some people run 8, like I think you run 8, right, Brian?
Mostly, yeah.
So 8 frame, okay, you could say, well, if I got 8 medium frames, every time I run it, I'm running 1 box. All right. But now you got 25 colonies. So you've got minimum 25 boxes you have to spin out. So if the cycle is 15 minutes, do that math, right? 25 times 15 hours. And then if you're like most of us when we start out, we don't really have an uncapping situation there. So you're uncapping 8 frames after you pull the 8 frames you just got out, right? So my thing was I've got these colonies and I'm running 10 frames, deeps, right? I was running deeps at the time. So now I'm only running 4 frames at a time. It takes me 45 minutes of just spinning honey to spin all those frames out. But guess what? Because I can't put the frames in there till I uncap them, I can only uncap 4 frames after that 4 frame is done, which makes it even longer, right? So it was like just brutal to spin honey. So that's why when Charlie's like, well, you should just go on up the 30 frame. So I did. Well, the 30 frames is, I mean, if you get a 20 frame or a 30 frame, that's a 33% faster production time. So you can do 3 boxes at a time instead of 2 boxes at a time, you know, or it's, I mean, compared to my 8.4, I mean, that's 70% faster. Probably more than that, you know.
And for me, as the small scale honey extractor, the Hive Butler uncapping tank was really helpful as well, because as I sat there and I was spinning out 1 round of frames, I could uncap my next round, let them sit in there, start draining out, and that's going to make my next round go even faster because so much of that honey has drowned out. That Hive Butler was one of those things where it was like, am I really paying this much for it? But it has been so worth it just from that small scale uncapping tank. And don't get me wrong, I'm going to be excited.
I went from the 5-gallon bucket model to the Hive Butler.
Now, what are you using for uncapping?
Huh?
What's it?
What are you using to uncap?
I use a heated uncapping plane.
That's what I use. Max Ant uncapping plane. And
I talked to the guys at Pierce because they've got a lot of their heated stuff with dials, with temperature dials. But there's no good uncapping planes out there that have a temperature dial. And we've talked about this, Charlie,
and
right?
that is the biggest downside.
I unplug it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're working on one with a dial. So I told them at Hive Life, when you have that out on the market, I will be the first to buy it.
Now,
have a regulator
is
on
that Hive Butler?
$200.
Well, $200.
Yep.
I had bought a Man Lake 4-foot long uncapping tank that I could put some kind of a slicer dicer on the top of it and all that stuff if I wanted to. And it was $700-800. And it came in and they had put the feet inside the tank. Well, sloshing around, it pounded the goddamn walls out, and it's like they didn't break them, but they sure did bend them. And I'm thinking, you know what? I don't care if they're going to knock $100 off or $200. I wanted something nice to begin with. Yeah, and I said, no, I don't want it. I don't want the piece of junk. So I got to looking at it, and my thing is mobility. I want to be able to pick up my extractor, carry it to the house where I live here. It's my grandparents' old house, and there's rooms that we don't use, and they're more or less storage. And so I needed something we can kind of carry through the house real easily, get through the doorways. So the 18 frame extractor from Man Lake I bought, and I bought that, and I said, this here uncapping tank, it's easy to clean, it's easy to move, it's everything. And the other thing was, I took my easy uncapper thing that snaps on the 5-gallon bucket, and you'll see the video I got where I put 2 wooden frames in there, and I screwed that thing to those 2 wooden frames, because now it's holding. Now I can put my plastic frames in those grooves. It locks it in, and I'm uncapping. And it works better. And when it comes to that tank, yourself, Brian, you let that capping stay in there for about a week, and shoot, what you recover in honey just from the drip of the cappings,
Yep,
it'll pay for itself. The recovery honey.
I do like 7 frames in an 8-frame box for my honey supers, so how far they'll pack that out, and like
Right.
half of my honey will go through that uncapping tank because of me cutting it off that close to the wood. Just so much honey comes off when I'm uncapping. Charlie, do you put casters on yours?
No, I don't.
No, you just keep it in one place. You have no need to wheel it around.
The uncapping tank?
Yeah.
No, I just pick it up and carry it and put it back in the back room.
So Lyson has this one.
And then I did have, my brother had a scissors lift, and I raised it up to a nice height where it fits me.
Okay.
And it has casters. So I can roll it around in my little back porch and put it out of the way for the daytime. And then in the evenings when I'm, after everybody's gone, then I can roll it around, raise it up to my height that I want.
Wait, so you don't even have the legs on it. You just have it on the lift.
Yeah, just have it on the lift.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
So Lyson has a hobby tank that is
pretty cheap.
$383, but it's got the grate, right? It's basically the same thing we've got. I've got the 1500. You got the 1000 millimeter?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so you got the little bit shorter one than I've got. But
now you got Lyson or you got Hive Butler? Right.
No, I got the Lyson one, but I haven't used it yet because I bought it at the end of the season.
Okay, I have the Hive Butler. That's the difference. I got the plastic one.
Yeah, see, I just replaced that. I have that one too. That's what I just bought my uncapping tank.
For me, the Butler works just fine.
Well, so what I've done with mine is these. Well, obviously, it's very similar setup to this on the legs, but I actually raised this back so it's higher on the back than it is on the front. So the honey, as it drips, it's dripping towards the gate. And the gate is troughed on the bottom, at least mine is troughed underneath the bottom, right? So if you tilt it up, it's all coming down the sides into the gate. And that does well. Let me see if they got the other ones on here.
I'm sure they do.
There's your creamer attachment.
That's the 36. Yeah, that's the one I'm getting. Yep. That's it.
So what do you need to be at before you have to buy this license, the complete extraction line? At what point do you say, yeah, I just got to pull the trigger on this bad boy?
Yeah, I have no goals to aspire to that level.
That's a 40 frame extractor. It's got the wax cappings press. It's got the automatic uncapper. This is a heated clarifier, right? With a pump. You'd have to, to spend that much money. I can honestly say, even with a little bit of honey, if I only had bought my extractor this year, my honey would have paid for it, right? Obviously, I bought a lot more than that, like a dummy. But hey, I did I did buy it before the price went up, I guess. But it's I'm trying to see where the see now my tank that's like this, I got the 18 gallon. I can't put the creamer on it. So that if I want to cream, either I have to do it manually like you were doing, or I have to invest in
just buy a whole new setup.
Yeah.
Just invest more in honey.
And that's what I'm finding. And this manual steam uncapper, I don't know if I like that any more than the one I've got. I mean, because the only thing is you're cranking it, right? If I'm going to spend the money on this, I'm going to spend the extra money and get the automatic one. Personally, I mean, that's just, if you're going to do it.
We're working on building a honey house. We're going to get a shed and we're going to make a little honey house out of it. And we're thinking of putting that uncapping tank on casters because we got the lid and it's a really nice like countertop, right? So we could use it as a counter as well when we're not using it as an uncapping tank. We can move it around. So we're trying to get out of we went from our kitchen to our garage. Now we're trying to get out of our garage into a...
Yeah, now there was a guy, he's passed away now, but I went over to his house and he had a 30 frame extractor, I'll say a Max Ant. And he had some like used stainless steel tubs and things, like, wash tub basins and stuff, or actually countertops. And it was a Black Bear building. It was outside his house. And
I think so, Daisy.
I'm going to say it was like 20 foot wide and 30 feet long or something like that. It wasn't that big of it was a building you could walk in, and he had the floor linoleum tiles and where he could wash it. And that's where that was his honey house. Extract everything right there.
And that's going to be a big growth for us for this season. We're getting an 8x12 shed. It's just going to be a honey house, right? There's going to be no electric.
I think I would go a little bigger. I can tell you that much. If you got the room.
Well, it's not a long-term goal, Charlie. It's not a 20-year plan. It's more of a 5-year plan. So, if I were 15, 20 years old, younger, I would be doing something different. But
I know what you mean.
With where we're at now, this is what we're shooting for.
So you're basically going to put the uncapping tank in there and the extractor, and that's about as far as it's going.
Well, no, it'll be storage for jars. It'll be storage for other stuff. It might be like a place for making stuff as well. I'll be processing my wax there. I got a lot of shit in my garage that I could move out there. That would give me room for more shit in my garage. I need room for one of those refrigerators for a warming tank. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I got a kid who's in college who we've been like slowly taking over his room. So first we'll take over a shelf, and now we've got a bookshelf, and now we've got a table in there for our packing stuff. So yeah, the kids are getting older.
So the creamer, I don't have one. So Brian would be able to speak to that better than I could.
To what?
They're asking, is it 3-phase? I think it is 230 because it goes with the 230.
Yep.
So
which isn't a problem for me because I've already had to buy that inverter for the creamer, and they're not going to have to both run at the same time because I'm not going to have it heating while I'm making creamed honey. So I can just plug in the creaming attachment to that inverter while I'm creaming the honey.
But that but I'm happy with the licensed equipment. Is it as heavy duty as like Max Ant or Data Ant? No, but it's also not as spendy. So the 30 framer, I should be able to get plenty of use out of that before I ever have to think about upgrading. Because what's the next step? If I got to go from 30 to 40, then I need to buy the line. I mean, that's kind of the thing. So,
and this is kind of the end for me as I look at my long-term goals. I'm not buying anything bigger than this. This is as far as I'm going.
That's where I'm at. I got my, I got all the tools that I think except for maybe a hive lifter, and I'm going to rework some things out in the yard this year. But I got my 18 frame extractor. I've got my uncapping tank from Hive Butler, which works fine for what I do. And I've got my 25-gallon Max Ant honey tank, bottling tank, and I'm pretty much done. I mean, I don't want to expand anymore.
Right.
I can't think of anything I really have to have. I mean, what would be nice now? I do have the solar wax melter, but you know what? It's wintertime and it won't melt the wax in the winter. So a wax melter, I could see it, but I'm not even generating wax like that.
I got that home built solar wax melter, works just fine.
Mhm.
The only other thing I bought was a year or two ago is I have that all it is electric pot that Max Man Lake. They put a darn valve in the bottom end of it, and I remelt my wax through that, and then I do a fine strain. And I learned this year, I went out and bought 5 or 7 bread pans. You know, they're like 3 inches wide or so, 4 inches wide, whatever they are, long 8. And I learned to fill them within an inch of the top, and that comes out to within a few ounces of just over a pound. And they're that non-stick surface, and you don't have to put no water in them or anything. Just they'll pop right out, and they look good.
You know what? With beeswax, it doesn't really matter what you put it in. If you put it in the freezer, the beeswax is going to shrink up to 10%, and it's going to pop out of almost anything.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I did with those last cappings. I just put them in the bread pan. I did put a little bit of water in it because I noticed that the lowest setting I can put in my oven is like 180. That's the lowest it'll go. And I just set it in the middle on a cookie sheet in case it spills or something, but melt it. And I did use water because for some reason, when the water heats up, it seems to melt it quicker for me. And the top of it actually almost browned, right? Some of the wax on it. So it just seemed pretty easy to do it that way. But
yeah, Greg here with Rock Ridge. Uncapping spinner is nice. I kind of looked into one of them if you really have a lot of them, but I don't know. It's
for me, Charlie, that is something I'm gonna look at next, because that's one of those things that's gonna pay for itself by getting that honey out of that uncappings. That's honey I can still sell, right? So if I can get out of there so much easier. What I'm doing now, I have nothing against, but I'm feeding my uncappings back to my bees, right? So it's just adding more steps to everything I have to do.
Yeah.
But if I had an uncapping spinner, I can dry my uncappings and get honey out of it and pay for that equipment over time. So that's definitely something I'm thinking about too.
But the uncapping spinner, I mean, for me, like even when I uncap into the tank, right? It takes a long time for those to drain, and they don't fully drain out still yet, so.
Right.
I mean, I can see when I put my, I'll say dryish uncappings in that wax melter, that solar wax melter, you can see there's a certain, a little, not much, but there's a certain amount of residue of honey in that water where that wax melts into.
I have one of those manual presses, it's like a cider press kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you get a lot of honey out of the wax you put in there. It's a pain in the ass to use, and I'm like interested in moving on to a different way to do it.
Yeah, Max Ant's got that.
Yeah.
A Lyson capping spinner cost $4,500.
Yeah, right. That's not going to pay for itself for a while.
Right. Now, if you had a Ian Stepler size thing when you got tons and tons and tons of cappings, or Mr. Ed or something like that.
That there, Cooks and Beal, that's about $50,000
right.
what he's got there. But that's what you got to look about when it comes to an extracting line, is that one thing creates another problem in the step of automation. And in order to you know, you got to have the automatic uncapper, and then you got all that drainage with all your frames and all the wax down there. And then, all right, now you got to do something with that, you know. And like Mr. Ed, he bought a slump tank, I guess you would call it, and it was too slow for the volume that he had. And then he went
got
with
one
a
for
with
$3,000.
he went with that Man Lake
The junior spinner.
yeah, the spinning tank. But that didn't seem to work very well for him, because now he's letting, you know, he's not doing it in a straight line process, you know, and that's where you come in to where you got to heat the honey up, and you got to auger it or pump it or somehow, like what Ian does through that heat exchanger. And then it goes as a slurry over to Cooks and Beal. And then that's the finally separation thing. And of course, he's mixing what's coming out of the extractor with the wax out of the uncapping tank, and it all goes into that one heat exchanger and all that, and goes through that machine and everything in order to do it streamlined. But probably got 100,000 dropped in that whole situation. And then you got to have a room for all that too, you know, and it's got to be a way you can wash everything down and keep it, you know, food grade safety.
That's one reason why I think I like that Lyson mini line so much. It's because it looks like it's all just compact.
Yeah.
But, you know, compact as
when I went up to EAS up there, Lyson or Betterby was there. They had that line sitting there. They were setting it up when I was there taking that video and all.
I don't think I could get financed for it. And if I did get financed, I'd have to buy a building to put it in. So it's a whole nother step of things.
Yeah. You know, when you start into that kind of stuff, it creates this big problem.
Yeah. So Charlie, what you're talking about when you solve one bottleneck, it's going to create another bottleneck.
Exactly.
But it's not necessarily creating another problem. It's, for me, I consider it creating another opportunity to be more efficient, because that's what you're trying to do at this point, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to get faster and more efficient at what you're doing. And solving that one bottleneck is just going to give you an opportunity to see another place where you can be more efficient next time, right? And then sometimes it's going to be worth it financially, just like we're talking about. Is a capping spinner worth it financially? Or is it worth it just to put the manual labor into doing it yourself? And everyone's got to determine that on their own. But I mean, the practice of going through that mental exercise is really important. Is this product going to pay for itself? Is it worth?
That was like the Maxant bottling tank, the 16-gallon one, you know. And when I first started, I looked at that thing and I'm like, $1,200, and I'm like, $1,200 just to put honey in a bottle, you know. And at the time, I had a small volume of honey, and I was, you know, you pretty much like you were selling it as almost as fast as you could kind of collect it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And you were selling out. So you didn't need to worry about crystallization at the time, because you were selling it fast.
Yeah.
And now I've grown to the point where, all right, now I've got 1,100 pounds of honey coming in, and I'm like, okay, I need to try to put it in a situation where it doesn't crystallize on me, or as much of it as I can. And that's where I'm at now. I got 25 gallons sitting in a tank. I got another 160 some pounds sitting in a hot box, you know, and then I got 300 or 400 pounds sitting in the front of the living room floor, you know, sitting there looking at me like, okay, when are you going to put me in a hot box, you know, and that kind of thing. And so it depends. I think when it comes to all this machinery, it's where you're scaled up at as far as the amount of honey, how many hives you got, you know, where are you at?
Want to be a little bit bigger than what, I mean, as far as equipment, than what you actually need when you get it. So what I found when I started, you know, was, hey, I need an extractor. So I'm going to get the bare minimum extractor I need right now. But that's the worst one, right? Because now I'm buying another extractor. I already paid, I was cheap, $300 or whatever it was.
Yeah, but that's $300 you could have put onto a better one.
Out the window, right? So,
yeah.
So that's it. Buy once, cry once, Lee says. So it's a matter of definitely knowing what your end game,
where you're going to go with it. That's the main thing. If you know, a lot of, I mean, even myself, I started out with one hive. I think it was 1 or 2 hives. I think it was 2 nukes.
Let's see how this goes. And then all of a sudden,
and it's like, okay, this is nice. And then I had fun with it. And then I said, okay, well, let's go out and buy a couple more nukes. And now I got 4 hives. Then it got to 6. And then it got to 8. And then it got to 10.
Then you started learning and you're like, oh, I can split these and then I can make queens. And now I got 30 and now nukes. And
you know, I can make money selling nukes and I can make money selling honey and this and that. And, you know, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, you know.
My first year, I gave most of my honey away.
I never did that.
Friends and family. I didn't make a lot, right? The first season, I just had a little bit. But, you know, friends would come over. Hey, it's like your first harvest. You're so proud of it, like your new baby, right? You're like, oh, look at my new baby. Here, try it, you know. And
well, I did have little 2-ounce bottles I gave out to everybody, you know, at McDonald's there when I was going up there to all the retiree guys up there that I knew.
You know, Lee has a comment in there, says plan for the next 5 years. You know, I think it's, you know, I believe something similar is just not just having a plan for the next step, but having a plan for the step after that. So for that shed I'm buying for the honey house, like if I was 20 years before I am today and still was buying that shed, I'd think to myself, okay, if I'm buying this shed now to do this honey house now, when I grow out of it and I need something bigger, what can I use this honey house for that it's still going to be useful to me when I scale up? So it's not always buying a giant shed that you can grow into, but making the most of the assets and thinking 2 steps ahead, as opposed to just what the next scale up is.
That's like Richard Noel was showing that video, you know, over there in Brittany, you know, oh, look how huge this thing is, huge because the arches are going up and all that. And I wrote in there, I said, Richard, you might think it's big, but you're going to fill that thing up faster than you ever thought you could. And you will. I mean, you'll never have it. I got huge buildings here at the mill and it's like, I could use 2 or 3 more, you know, where it would be, if I could take certain lumber and, you know, the way it is now, you're burying your lumber, you know, I need the pack in the back. Well, if you could separate it out and organize it, if you had that much room, that's great. You know, you would reduce your moving things around, but that's you never have enough room. Never.
It's always about it does boil down to what's your goal, right? And I think when we start, our goal is, like you said, 1, 2 hives. Let's see how it goes. And then all of a sudden you're expanding and you're like, oh, wait a minute. Now I've got 150 frames I need to extract. You know, I've got 15 extra boxes I need. Yeah, the more I need more. Yep, that's kind of how it works. And we're I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know what the end is. I know where I want to get right now. I've honestly been looking for an acre or 2. If I could find an acre or 2 that was like farmland, like Charlie's got behind him right there in the photo, then it would be a different animal because I'd be out there with 100 colonies, 150 colonies sitting back there. I just know me, right? It's that OCD. Well, if I did 50, I could do 100. But, you know, I might have to quit my job, but I could do it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I grew mine. I went in the winter a couple years ago with, it was,
and it does get more expensive every year.
I had close to 50 hives, you know, with nukes and honey hives. And, you know, if it's your full-time job or whatever, if you had multiple days in a week in order to work all that, that's fine. But when you only have the weekend and part of the weekend is already being used, like the first morning, Saturday mornings, I'm working regular work. And then you're busting your butt all Saturday afternoon till evening.
Mm-hmm.
And Sunday, you get to the point where it's like, man, you're all by yourself and you got to work it, and I'm working. I normally work where I do my nukes one weekend and I do my honey hives the next weekend or whatever, depending on what time of the year it is. And I said, all right, I got to scale back some here to where it's a little more enjoyable, I'll say, and everything, because it's still more of a hobby type thing, a hobby business, I guess you'd call it, or sideline. And
but now, Charlie, are you planning to retire from the mill anytime, or are you planning to just stay with it?
I think we'll just continue on. I mean, it's a family business, and that's the problem, is the fact that it's like one thing that Bob Benny said to Nathan. He said, don't live and work at the same place. You really want, if you have a business, you want the business to be by itself, and then you live at your house someplace, some other location. So you don't have to sell your house in order to quit your business. You can sell your business and still keep your house. And it's two different entity areas.
Right.
And that was the one thing. Nathan, he's got a farm. And he said, well, wait a minute, I got this ground here. To alleviate buying ground, which ground is tremendously expensive, and everything, of course, everything goes with it. And I see what he's saying, and that's where we're at. We have the farm, we got the mill, and we are getting up in age. My brother's older than I am, and I don't know what we're going to do. I mean, if he is not able to do a lot of the stuff, I can do certain things. He's the guy that runs the mill part of it, where I run the dry lumber and all that. He's also the fixing guy. He has the mechanical ingenuity. We had a breakdown this Friday with our automatic cutoff saw, and I don't know how he figured it out, but it's some kind of a relay switch or something he had to buy. Not sure what it was. I don't know. It's like, the biggest thing is in this day and time, can you really afford to retire? You can't live like you're living right now on Social Security. You got to have a certain amount of money stocked away, but that gets ate up with inflation quite quickly anymore, it seems like.
My beekeeping business is my retirement plan. It's what my wife and I plan to do to just kind of keep us busy and keep us young and keep some money in our pockets and get us out doing stuff, when the kids are away.
Well, that's another thing. I've watched people where you get people that go and sit down in a rocking chair and within 4 or 5 years are dead.
Right. You retire and that's it. What else is in life?
Right.
That's not me. I don't want to do that.
And well, what I'm getting at is your body's used to you moving and burning up the food you eat. And if you start to, sediment, sit there and do much of nothing, then your cholesterol goes up and all your arteries choke up because you're not burning all that stuff up and moving. Right. And, we got the ground here, and my son, he's farming where the green area is, doing hay, and he loves it. And, so anyway, he's taking that part over. We're backing down on certain things. Yeah, I know. I need to write I have a will, but there's some other, I need to be update. We're working on that too. About, we got tons of machinery. It's worth a lot of money, and we're trying to, give it to my son. And that's the problem with the government. The government wants to, you got
$1.
Huh?
Sell it to them for $1.
Yeah.
And
you got to watch. You
cheap.
got to watch about how much you can gift them and all this kind of crazy crap.
There's like annual gifting laws and stuff that, you know, it's
Yeah,
taxable
you
and
know, it's like,
non-taxable. Yeah.
you know, and that's, you know, people say, well, oh, you can sell the ground. I says, sit there and do the math. I said, all right, you know, right now there's a downturn in the real estate because of interest rates and stuff. But let's say you got you know, we've had one estimate several years back, $3 million for the ground. All right, okay, $3 million. Sounds like a lot. You divide that 3 ways with me and my brother and sister. Well, then once Uncle Sam gets a hold of it, you got $650,000 left. How long can you live on $650,000 in these days? You know, well, for me, I would want to move. You know, the house is on the farm that was given to me. I would want to move. Well, then you got to buy a piece of ground, and then you got to build or buy a house.
See,
There
there's a
goes
way
your
around
money.
that, though,
You just,
Charlie.
huh?
There's a way around that. So, not to get off the topic of bees, but this is kind of around the same thing. So, the government cannot tax you on a loan. So you and your brother and sister go in and get a loan for the sale price of the property for $3 million or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So you guys pull that property, you get that money off the loan. Then you sell that property to somebody else. Well, when they refinance it, they're paying off that note for you, right? So there is a net zero on the profitability of that, and you have the cash that you've gotten from the loan.
Yeah.
So,
but on the other thing, I don't want to sell the ground. To me, my ground is my heritage. That's the way I feel about it.
right.
And I want to pass that ground on to my kids and let them hopefully keep it and keep it in the family.
Right. That's
where we're at with that.
That's the same thing here. My kids, I'm trying to build up something here with the bees, right? With the swarm lure, with the apis, a viable business, the website, the honeybees. But my kids don't show interest in the bees. So it's like to pass that on would be difficult because they don't care to do it, right?
I know.
So that's the thing.
That's the world in general. Seems like everybody has that similar problem. And then when the kids do get interested, it's too damn late.
Yeah.
You know, it's all been sold or done this or done that, or they say, I wish I'd have kept that stuff. And, you know, and then they finally realize what you were trying to do for them and all. Now,
but yeah, that's the that's the thing. That's the world we live in. You know, unfortunately, and I won't say it for everybody's kids, but my kids are the typical Gen Zers or whatever they're called, right? Where they're more interested in video games and this and that, and don't really care about stuff like this. And I probably was the same way when I was growing up. You know, I mean. And now,
I think it kind of depends on the environment. Like my son's 25 and, you know, he was out there at 6:30 tonight, hawking hay, you know, selling hay. And like he went out and got him a used gooseneck trailer. It's got I think it's at least a 16 or 20 foot, I guess a 20-foot bed on it. And he's using the snot out of that thing.
You guys doing square bales or are you doing round rolls?
He's doing square. He's doing round. You know, there's a wagon right up there. He's went out and he's bought his own equipment. Some of it, you know, some of the like wagons, and he's found some good deals on that. He found this gooseneck used, and he, you know, it wasn't a whimmy thing. That thing gets used every 3 or 4 days a week. You know, he's constantly buying and selling hay, and he's doing well with it.
Kids don't want the land or business. They want the money. Unfortunately, that's what Lisa said, and Silver Gorilla agreed with them. I mean, I think that's the same here. My kids don't. They would rather probably sell whatever I build to get the money and have that instant gratification. But the difference is when you take that instant gratification, it runs out, right? Like you were saying, 3 million, you get 650,000 out of your portion. Well, how long is that going to last you? And then some people could last a long time, some people few years, you know, it just depends. But the thing is that, you know, where if you had a viable business that they learned, like I was watching that Rotten again that I keep talking about, that Lawyers, Guns, and Honey, right? If you haven't watched that episode, you need to. But there's a guy on there, and he happens to have the same last name as me, Walker, and Smitty Bee Farm, right? You know, they're a honey co-op or whatever. And so, you know, his dad started it. Now he's running it. Well, the thing is, if he runs it and his dad passes on, or when he passes on, well, now he's got a lifetime of income as compared to a short amount, right? As far as passing on. But you know, you can't make somebody love something like you either. So it's like,
well, luckily my one son loves it. Now Lamar Farms, as far as how much the round bales are, it depends on how big they are. I kept telling my son we were doing 4x4s, and actually we were doing like 40, 46, 47, 48. We were doing 44s in diameter, 4 foot long. And I think they're up around 60 to 75, 60 to 80. They're at least $60 a round bale, at least, I think. I'm not real sure about that. They might be closer to 75. My son started out getting bigger round bales. Then he found out it was, you know, you got to be like Mr. Hershey. You got to downsize that thing and keep the price the same, you know, to make money, make it ends meet.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I understand that point, but it gets to a point in your life, like mine, right? In my life is where right now I'm kind of, I hate to say it, handicapped because my wife's not working, right? I got the bees and I've got my job, but I'm not going to have anything at this point to, like, even retirement. What am I going to have? Social Security? That's nothing, right? I mean, it might make my truck payment, you know, or something like that. But it's like at some point you start thinking about, well, do I have anything to bequeath to my grandkids, right? My daughter's going to have a grandbaby this year. And so it's like, am I going to have something to pass on? And I think that's natural, even if it's not about beekeeping. It's about, you know, whatever you're doing. It's like, well, am I leaving anything behind? You know, Charlie's got the farm. Yep, he can pass his farm on. I don't have a farm. I got, you know,
make it better, make it worse. Yeah, he is very hard worker. He's got a lot of energy, and he has what do you call it? That entrepreneurial drive, I guess you would call it. And he does, you know, he's bought multiple wagons. He found good deals on them. He bought this fifth wheel for hauling hay, and he's networking with other farmers, you know, about buying hay from them and reselling. And he does things different than we did. You know, he does, what's it called? Venmo and PayPal and
Cash App. I use Cash App and stuff for someone comes up. Hey, do you have Cash App? Sure do. Cash App me this much money.
And plus he advertises, I'll say, on Facebook or something like that, you know, where he's capturing a lot of people that way. So, but he went to,
I paid for those queens with Venmo. My buddy bought 100 of them, and then I Venmo'd him the $900 for my 30. Yeah, Venmo's actually pretty handy.
Yeah, that's tough to do for sure. I mean, that's the unfortunately, I mean, that's the way our Social Security works. Hopefully when I get to retirement, they keep bumping that year back too, right? So what, Charlie, you can probably I,
67, I think.
it's
I
60
have to wait.
for you, and I think it's 70 for me now. And I'll be lucky to make it to 70.
That's what they're hoping for.
Yeah. So your
That's what
money
it amounts-
gets absorbed into the fund.
It's just another. I look at it as just another tax. That's what it amounts to, I think.
As a teacher, I don't pay into Social Security. Colorado has something called para, and like it's like cops and government people. So it's kind of like Colorado's own Social Security system.
Yeah.
And I keep telling my wife it's like a Ponzi scheme, right? Because you keep paying it. You know, it's like they keep getting us as investing into it, right, to pay their previous investors. And
Well, if you were a federal employee up until Reagan got in there, they had their own private Social Security system too. And then he got rid of that, and then everybody started paying into the regular Social Security system. And all.
Yeah, that's the thing. So hopefully, you know, the bees. Do I ever see myself making 1,000 nukes or something like that? Nope. I don't. You know, I don't see that. It would be nice to be able to have that type of enterprise, you know, where I'm doing all that kind of stuff. But, you know, for me, I think I haven't been able to produce more honey than I can sell. I always have some honey at this point.
You're not at that level yet. That's the problem. You know,
Yeah. So
you got to build those hives up strong, keep them healthy. You know, you got the 19 hives right now that are honey producers, but they're, I don't know. Do you actually have, you had a few of them die out already. So you're less than 19.
I'm about, my overwinter rate this year has been about, I'm closing in on 50%. So not great at all. So, you know, and I stopped by and talked to Sam yesterday. He said, you know what, Bob, not for nothing, but ever since you've been beekeeping, we haven't had a good honey flow around here like we were having. I said, yeah, that's pretty much my luck, you know. I start stuff at the worst time, you know. That's how it goes. But you know, we do what we can with it, and and we just roll with it, you know. So if I come out with 12 like I started this year, then we'll do the same thing and we'll build back up, you know. I got the equipment, so might as well use it. And
well, I think you're learning. It's just like you made a mistake where you're pulling out wax brew or wax foundation out of the brood chamber, where James says, no, don't do that. And Brad said the same thing, you know, keep that full of wax, let them build the wax above their heads. And it's just, it's a learning curve, you know, and once you kind of get that, you know, you kind of know all that, and you start generating your hives up, and you're always going to lose some.
Well, today I started really taking the inventory that Brian was talking about, right? I'm separating my foundations from my drawn comb. I'm putting my drawn combs in boxes that are all in one spot. So I can say, okay, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, you know, whatever it is. And trying to figure that out. So, because I have it everywhere, right? I have it in 2 frames, 5 frames, 10 frames.
Yeah, you can't do that.
And
so you don't know what you have.
Yeah, so I know about what I know what I started with. I know how many frames I have. I just don't know what the division is of that.
Yeah, right? But like you pulled that one frame out, it was about half shot. You know, I think it looked like to me it was natural comb. It's like I won't say tossed it, but I would have just cut that out and melted it.
Right.
You know, I mean, I don't know. I mean, for me, I like nuke boxes. I know I got one building in here. I've got a bunch of, I try to separate the mediums versus the deeps. Down in the basement, I've got honey supers down there. I've been painting I bought last year, and I'm not sure if I'll need all of them, but you always need a box, and that, and I got some deep boxes down there for nukes, 10 frame stuff.
Speaking
I got a bunch of comb, honey comb in the freezers.
A buddy of
And
mine just bought one of those, where they drop it off at your place. What do you call it? You call it a bear something, bear building or something?
Black Bear Building. That was a company in Pennsylvania. They
It's a
called them.
branded building, basically, right?
It's just a building on skids.
Well, he
You
bought
know.
one, and it's a metal building with a garage door on it, and
Mhm.
I think it's 20 feet long too, and got 12-foot ceilings in it.
Yeah.
So it would be, of course, he got it on the payment plan system, right? So, but I was thinking, man, that'd be great to store all these boxes in instead of leaving them out here in the weather to put
Yep.
them up in that building. But I don't know if it's worth that monthly payment to do that, but I don't know.
Well, right now, the way I see it, you need to stop spending so much money and just focus in on you need to buy frames, and that's pretty much it.
Yep.
Get your box, and if anything, get out there and I would get all my boxes organized, and if you have drawn comb in those boxes, then like James and them said, okay, you put all your drawn comb over here. This is where you know where it's at.
Yep.
You got your foundation stuff over here, and you know where all your 10 frame deep stuff is, and ready for all that. And then take what you got in bees now and let them grow, and maybe feed the snot out of them here. We put some Apis biologic on them, and
I'm really just waiting for the temperature to come up a little bit because those buckets.
I think you're still a month out.
Yeah, maybe 2 to 3 weeks at least.
You're just about a month.
And the
I would say, this is February, so what, the 1st of March?
When that temperature changes with those buckets, man, it starts to rain inside the colonies with those Bob Binney buckets that I got. And I don't know, maybe it's the number of holes they drilled in them. I don't know, but
oh, you're talking about where they're expansion, contraction.
Yep. And it just drips in there. I don't mind a slow drip in there because they'll lick that up. But when it starts to rain. Well,
Bob, I used quart jars right in the beginning of my beekeeping career. And here in Colorado, it gets so cold at night compared to the days. I had the same problem, and I just gave up using them and went to other feeders just because of my situation. I had them dripping on bees so much.
So what are you using? Top feeders?
No, I use frame feeders.
See, I've got frame feeders too, but it seems like they like to drown in those things, right? At least mine do. Even with the mother load ones that
sometimes, yeah, not a lot, but sometimes. And every every feeder has its drawbacks, every pros and cons. For me, that's just what I've settled in, and part of it's because of my back problem. So I do 2 double deep 8 frames, and I always have my frame feeder in the top box. So if I ever have to pick up that box, it's usually when the frame feeder's empty, and I'm just picking up a box with 7 frames in it to begin with. Mm-hmm. And that's another reason I like those double nucleus colonies, because I'm picking up a 4-frame box. That's all I have to pick up with those. So it's nice on my back.
Yeah, Sam's a good mentor, but we've got 2 different business models, right? Business model is selling nukes. That's his whole thing, his whole yard. I mean, he does have some 8 frames, and he does have some 10 frames. But he primarily is just making nukes, and so his goal is a little bit different than mine at this point. And at one point this year, I actually had more colonies than he does, but because he's only doing the 5 framers, yes, he gets some honey, but he's not getting hundreds of pounds of honey like I got. He gets some honey, but he's just doing 5 frame nukes, and he does walk away splits, which I'm trying to turn him away from. hey, if you got to buy some queens instead of letting them make their own queen. If you're not going to buy queens, buy cells. And that at least cuts it down a little bit because the queens are getting ready to hatch out, right? You're not waiting 2 weeks for them to make queen cells and, all that stuff. So let me see.
Yeah, walkaway split's the longest split you can do. So
that's the thing here. So we're going to try to, and if I've got extra, if I'm practicing grafting and I get extra queens, I'll take him some cells. It's not a big deal for me, And
that's why I figured too, buying those queens wasn't going to be, there was no real big risk, because the way I figure it, I put 3 of those queens into into a split or into a queenless nuke. They'll make honey for me. I'll make that $900 back in honey with probably 3 of those queens. Right. So then I can take the other ones and do whatever I want with. So for me, it felt like a really safe investment to kind of play around and try some different stuff and help me grow a little bit with my management skills too.
And if you sell a queen, well, then if you take her out of the nuke box, they're going to make queens for you, at least cells,
That's right.
for that queen. So that's not really a drawback from that side, as long as your timing is right. If your timing is right, it'll make a huge difference. Otherwise, you end up doing what I did and reduce them all back, combine them all back together, and they're just not strong enough for the winter. At least they weren't for me. So
yeah. Maybe a change in your thinking, Bob, would maybe be to not consider a 2-frame nuke a colony. When you think of that frame of mind of how many colonies you have, right. I don't consider a 2-frame nuke a colony. It's something that's making me a queen. It's not, it could be a colony at some point, but if I've got 22-frame nukes in my backyard, I don't have 20 colonies.
Right.
So
that's where, I did count them. And then when I reduced them, then I couldn't count them. So it looked like I shrunk a lot, which I did. But you got to keep in mind, I sold 10 nukes, right, for the first time. So if I wouldn't have sold those 10 nukes, now all of a sudden I got 10 extra colonies out here. If I wouldn't have sold all those queens, well, maybe I had more than 10 more colonies. But, it was money. It was an experience. It was learning everything. It's all good,
And I did the same thing too. My first year of selling queens and nukes, I was so eager to get going, right? I was more interested in selling queens and nukes than thinking about how those would benefit my apiary.
Right. And that's what I found. And, I even equated that with Sam. I told him, I said, well, when I started getting bees from Sam, he had many more colonies than he has right now. He's kind of in I don't know if it's I'll call it a downward spiral. It's smaller. I don't know if that's the right phrase for it, but he's got less colonies today than he did when I first started going out to see him 4 years ago. So it's one of those things that, well, how do you get those numbers back and still sell all of those nukes? It becomes harder and harder, right? You start that downward spiral. So, all right. So last year he upped his price on nukes to $200 because that's what everybody was selling them for. And he told me a few weeks ago, he's like, well, I dropped him back to 185 again this year. And I said, okay, well, that makes sense if you're going to sell more nukes. But in my mind, I'm thinking, how are you going to sell more nukes with less bees starting out with?
Right.
So wouldn't you want to make the most money you could make per nuke if you got less of them to sell? And the reason you sold less last year was not because of he didn't advertise them like he did the year before, right? So at some point, let me see. Yeah, I agree with that. I said that same thing to James today, that I've got to tweak what I'm doing. Yeah, learning it is half the battle, right? And the thing is, you never know as much as you think you know. I mean, at least that's what I'm finding out, right? But this channel's definitely helped. It gives you suggestions and ideas and things to do.
Well,
And
it's one thing, like me and Brad were talking after the show last night a little bit, and about how Ian does certain things, and I've watched him on certain videos where if like it's like with you, if you start this spring and start building back, and you leave those hives go and get them good and strong, if you, it's like Brad said, Ian will say something about skimming these hives. Well, if the hive is really super strong, he'll take maybe one frame of brood or something out of that, or maybe two at the most. And then let's say if you have 20 hives and you take one frame out of each one because they're all pretty darn strong, and you put back some comb, and now you can make 5 more nukes,
right.
with
But you
those.
can skim one frame every week, right?
No, you're going too strong.
One frame out of a colony, a strong colony every week is too strong.
Or you're pulling them down too much. I mean, you got to remember it's every 3 weeks that brood cycle's kicking in.
So, okay, let's say every 3 weeks you could make 5 nukes.
Yeah. Or maybe every other week. It depends on how.
Oh, but then you got the 5 you just made that you could pull from.
Well, you get those 5. And then you put a box on top of that with foundation in it.
Right.
And you give them some, let's say you put a feeder on there with 1-to-1 where you can protect it for them not to get robbed out of. And when do I start? Probably around May is when I start grafting.
So if you
it gets cool in April here. So usually, generally they say the 15th of April, but it kind of depends on the weather. I mean, if it gets in the 40s at night, look out. They're going to abandon.
If I started in April, it would be too late here.
I would say March in your area. You're always about a month ahead of us.
So, and that's what I was thinking around, if I can buy queen cells the first week in March, why can't I make queen cells for the first week of March? That was my thought today. You
can. So, I mean, it depends on the drone population, but the best way is, all right, you don't know, right? Then just try it.
Oh, I'm gonna
just try it.
I'm
do
gonna
it and see what happens.
A licensed 6-frame nuke, slam full of nurse bees, and I don't care what colony. It'll probably
you're gonna take one frame out anyway for your graft frame. So now you got 5 frames plus a grafting frame right in the middle.
Yep.
And and do it that way, and graft 30 or 45. Let's see, 30, 40, yeah, graft 45.
Have 2 splits I've already made that we'll have to see in another week or so if there's a queen that is come back. I know one of the cells from the end had been released, but I haven't seen the queen, and I really didn't spend much time in it because I just popped it open, checked the cell. Yep, it's open, put it back in, closed it back up. Nothing I can do with it. It's going to do what it's going to do.
Just leave it for a couple weeks. Don't mess with it for a couple weeks
and wait.
But what I'm getting at is all right. You got that 2-framer there, and I would, if you can go through and skim off some, when they're good and strong first, and go put them in the darn 2-framers, and do it that way. Put a cell in there, buy some $5 cells for right now, and then start grafting all at the same time. Make a 3-bar graft, 45 cells. See how much you get out of it. You're not going to get all 45 unless you're absolutely lucky.
Well, Yeah, I'm not lucky. You don't know that yet about me? You haven't learned that yet?
What I'm getting at is like, I'll do 30. And if I can get 25 out of 30, I'm happy.
Well, here's the thing. So I thought, and that's what I was thinking. So I'll graft 30. If I get 15, that would be great.
Yeah.
But I'm banking on it to be 50% or less, right? So it's like, if that's the case, if the worst case scenario for me is to have 30 queens, I'll get 28 of them bastards back. They'll just, I don't know, the lightning will strike. I'll have the best take I'll ever have in my life on my first time, because I don't have this stuff set up for 30. I only really planned on having 15 queens, right?
Well, then you can still do it. You know, you can still put the 2 framers in there and lock them up. Don't let them out for 4 days. Put them on that rack over there that you had this year. Put the queen cells in there. She's gonna come out and stay in there for a week anyway to get hardened up and ready to go to fly. And after 3 or 4 days, then unrelease them, and then they'll stay in there.
Right.
And you gotta, and then let her lay for 3 or 4 weeks. Get her going good. And then you might want to put the 2 framers where you try to alleviate your problem and headaches. You put the 2 framers around your apiary where you want the 10 framers to go. So you go from 2 to go to 5. You get the 5
don't
framers.
think I won't go to that lot next door to me and put my boxes out there. That dude never comes out there. I'll put them boxes over there and let them, just in a different area. And
yeah, but what I'm saying is, instead of trying, I got to move it over here. Don't worry about it. Put the box where you want it permanently.
Right.
And grow from 2, put them in 5, and get them up really good in a 5, then put another 5 on top, which might happen to be foundation, and feed them. Let them pull that wax out. She'll go upstairs. She'll lay before they even get the wax pulled out. I've seen it. The wax is no more than maybe
the egg is taller than the wax is.
Yeah, it's about right. And they'll pull that wax out as the egg is growing. And now you got bees from the top to the bottom in that double nuke. Now you got 10 frames of bees. And then you can either put 2 more boxes on top or another box on top, and then get ready to, put, when you dismantle that box to a 10 framer, now you got 10 frames of bees and drawn wax all ready to go, rock and roll. And then you can put another deep on top of that if that's the way you're going to run it. And all that. Or you can take let's say you go up 3 boxes, take the 3rd box off and make another split.
Right.
And just keep, potentially doing that constantly. And you'll have those 40 hives. And then make 20 nukes for yourself for insurance. If you don't need them in the spring, or sell part of them, sell 10 of them for
that was
$200.
the other thing that I, listening to James and Brad and Ian, that they're making their nukes after their flow for the winter. So when they come into the spring, those bees are ready to go in a 10 frame box and start making honey. And
yeah, but like that 3 thing that you keep talking about.
Oh yeah. The 3x6.
Yeah.
3x6, 2x10.
There was a couple of things there that they said that I was listening to. And all right, the first thing is they started that thing in June 21, which is the summer solstice with the queen, even up there and down here. She's going to start. She's not going to swarm, number one, because she's starting to shut down.
Right.
I've seen it in my own hives. I go out there to these hives and I'll go in every week looking at that brood chamber, equalizing the brood chamber throughout our honey season, April, May, and June. And by the mid-June, I'm like, I don't need to go into these boxes anymore, because I can see I don't need to pull anything out either. She's starting to slow down. They're out of that swarm mode. And
they don't. I don't know that they get out of it down here. To be honest with you, I mean, there was Christmas lights out, and I'm pulling bees out of somebody's tree. And it's like,
Yeah, but you don't know what the hive was like.
Yeah, Bob, that's an outlier. That's not a normal behavior. Something was wrong with those bees.
Yeah,
I don't think
they got out of there because of mites or something else.
And then they left your box 2 days later.
Yep.
Right.
That's
So
right. So
I think
there was an issue.
And I felt the same thing with those queen cells when you saw them, Bob. I said, pay attention to the outliers, and I'm wondering, do you want to make splits out of these queen cells? Because they're the very first queen cells. Are they the best genetics? Are you, and I don't know the answer to this, but are you propagating swarmy genetics by pulling the very first queen cells that you found in the season?
Well, those bees are pretty prolific. The ones that did that, I mean, they're slam full. So, that's why we put them over the double screen board. So if they didn't take, well, then we just take that double screen board back and
put them back
happy
in.
Life. They go right back together again. And
I want to offer you can I offer you a different scenario of what you can do with your 16 colonies?
Sure.
So I'm just going to keep it simple, and I'm going to keep it from the frame of mind of a honey producer primarily, but with your goal of still trying to expand. So I'm going to assume you have 16 colonies coming out of winter to work with. You'll feed those up for splits. You'll be able to make one split off of every one of those colonies and still be able to produce honey off of every one of those overwintered colonies, right?
Absolutely.
So you've doubled your colonies and you're set up for honey production. And then you're thinking about making late summer nukes for your next year's queen. You can, after your honey production, pull another split from those good colonies, not the ones you're building up that you just made in the spring, but from the ones that just produced honey. And you can make those nukes that you're going to build up and overwinter again for next year. So those first round of nukes you're building up to try to get into winter a full-sized colony. That second round of nukes, you're trying to just get to nuke size. So those are your nukes going into winter. So you could hypothetically triple your size and still make honey in the best of conditions in that scenario.
So Hope here is about an hour north of me, maybe a little bit better than an hour north of me. So they have 25 strong hives with 3 to 6 frames of brood in them, and we'll take splits off each by the 1st of March, right? 3-1.
Yep.
After half will be honey production hives, the rest will split 2 times or more every 3 weeks.
Now, Hope is that 3 to 6 frames of, I presume, deep frame brood, right?
Yeah, that's what he's in right now, right?
All right. Well, you got 3 to 6 frames of brood. If that one hive have 6 frames of brood, come springtime, I would take 3 frames of that and make a split. I would leave half of whatever they have in there. Now, if it only had 3 frames of brood in there, I wouldn't.
What I would do, and you tell me if I'm stupid on this, but it hasn't been stupid on my strong colonies. So if you've got that, and let's say they're single deeps, and you have comb, I would put a second box up, move some of that brood up, at least half of it, and drop, let's say 3 frames of brood, or you take 3 frames up and replace those 3 with drawn comb in the bottom.
Yeah.
And give her more room to lay. So instead of 3 to 6 frames, you would have 6 to 9 frames of brood in the bottom, and her population would be expanding over the next 4 weeks before you make the splits, right? You're just giving yourself more brood. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm trying to say, or did I say it wonky?
So you started with a single and you added a box onto it so they could grow into 2 boxes?
Yeah, so Hope here says they have 25 strong colonies with 3 to 6 frames of brood in them, and then we'll take splits off 3-1, right? And then
she's doing that, or he's doing that because they're going to swarm.
yes. So
Right.
if you're making all those splits, you could actually, I'm assuming it's single deeps. I don't know that, but if it's single deeps, I would put a second deep on top, take half of that brood to that second box on top with drawn comb, right?
Yeah.
Take the other frame that you just took out of the bottom, put drawn comb in there, so the queen has more room to lay it up.
Yeah, you always put you're going to replace it. Always going to replace it with drawn comb.
Yeah, and then what will happen is you'll have more brood by the time you go to make those splits, or at least more bees in that colony that are hatching out, and you still have that brood laid up. You're not waiting the 3 weeks for that cap brood to hatch out, right? You're giving her more room to lay before you make those splits. That's just my thought.
Yeah, but that's what I'm talking about when I say when I'm equalizing my hives. If I go in there and I got 6 frames of cap brood, or let's say there's 3 frames, 6 frames of capped. I'll take 3 frames of the cap brood out. I will put 3 frames of drawn wax back in. Take that 3 frames, and either you can make a split with it, or it's where your double screen bottom board comes in. Put that upstairs along with some drawn wax, and if you got a cell or a queen that you could put in there right quick, now you got a nuke upstairs.
I also thought about, and this is, you can make them easily, but I saw them on Man Lake. Okay. Basically, it's a migratory cover that's been cut out for a nuke box.
Yeah.
You can take that migratory cover.
All it is a piece of plywood.
Yep. And you put that brood up top, put it back on there. Now all those bees are going to come up and populate that box. Then you can just pull it off, right? And
well, you got the queen excluder does the same thing, but what that's a nuke double frame. You're taking a 10 frame, and you can either, I think I've seen them where you can put 2 nukes up there with the 2 holes, and it's double screen bottom board is what it is. So they get the heat and keeps those 2 nukes viable with a queen up there of either a cell or a mated queen till they get going.
Yeah, I just thought that was an easy way that if you had that board, you could just set your nuke box up there, put some brood up in there. The bees are going to come up through that board.
Yeah.
Just pull that nuke box off, right? Take that board out. Now you got a nuke box you could put a queen cell in, and you got a brand new nuke just like that too. But I kind of like pulling the frames and putting them myself. But but that's
the same. It's just what you did here a week ago with James. What he told you, you're doing the same identical thing.
Yeah, the only thing was that I'm doing it in a medium box where you can just put that deep 5 frame on there and bring them up too. So I mean, same thing, same principle.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to match the bottom box with the top box. It's got to be 10 frame, whether it's a deep or a medium. It doesn't.
Right.
It's what you're bringing up out of the bottom. If you're bringing deep frames up, you're going to put a queen excluder on and with your brood, and you're going to put it in a deep box.
Right.
And then they're going to populate that. I've done that in my nuke yards, and you don't have to wait a day. I went in and I pulled out the frames of larvae and cap brood and all that kind of stuff. Made the split in the box, shook all the bees off, put the queen excluder on. I buy 5 frame queen excluders. I put that box on, and I'm going down the rest of my hives. I went back 20 minutes later, 15 to 20 minutes later at the most, and that box is fully populated. Now all I got to do is pull that box off. I got a nice coverage of bees. Put them on a hive stand, lock them up because they're going to want to go back to the parent hive. Get yourself some 1/8-inch hardware cloth, jam that stuff in the front entrance so they got air coming in. You got air coming up through the screen bottom board. put it on its stand where you want it, feed them, put a quart jar on there, put a inner cover on is what I do. I put another box on top, put the quart jar inside, come back in 4 days. And if you can do that, and let's say you've got rain for the next 4 days, that's even better yet, because they don't want to come out. And that hive will stay there.
Right.
And put a queen cell in there at the same time, or a mated queen or something. And,
Well, the only reason I thought that would be a good idea is because you're specifically building it in a 5-frame box, right? You're just putting that 5-frame box on there with, let them come up and populate the 5-framer. Yeah, I mean, I understand you can do it with the 10 as well, but
if anything, all you got to do is if you got a 10-frame box on the bottom and you want to put a 5-frame box on top, get yourself a queen excluder, put the queen excluder on, get yourself a piece of 1/2-inch or 1/4-inch plywood, put that on top of the queen excluder, and then you cut the hole out for the box.
Right.
And then you pulled your frames up and put the darn box on top of that hole, put the lid on top, and they'll come up.
Right.
You did the same thing. And then you can pull that off that, within half an hour later, most likely it'll be full.
Right.
All right. I got to go pick up. I got to get off here.
You got to get off here. Yeah. We've been on for 2.5 hours. It's probably about time.
Yeah. Well, good talking to you guys. It's been a while.
Good to see you. I haven't talked to you lately. So
well, we don't have any special guests this week that I'm aware of on Tuesday night, but yet. So we were trying to get was it Kaye from Jamaica, but I don't have his contact information, so I don't know if he jumps on or not this week. But I like hearing beekeeping from different parts of the world. I think it's pretty.
Yeah, that was interesting, thinking about the hive gate. I never thought about it as far as thermoregulation at all. I just thought it was like a guard thing.
Right. But then when you see it from the bottom and you see how they interact with the gate and plug it up, it makes a lot of sense. Oh, look who we got now. You sure you want to leave now, Charlie?
Yeah, I got to leave. Sorry, Mike. I might do a Sunday night thing. I don't know. Maybe thinking about it. I'm not going to be going out later that evening.
Ed timed out Clueless beekeeping on accident, putting his phone in his pocket. Sorry.
Hi, y'all.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, Mark. What's up, buddy?
What's going on?
Oh, not much.
I think I've heard of every way to split bees it is already.
Well, hey, we try to, keep it lively.
Yeah.
The biggest thing, Bob, is find something that you like to use and just use that.
Right.
It works for you, whatever works for you type of thing.
Well, I had my second season, I had pretty good luck just doing walkaways, and was able to grow that way, but that's not very efficient. So you don't know, right? And then it's 2 weeks later that you find out, oh, well, shit, that didn't work. You gotta
jump in there and graft and try your grafting skills. And
I might be a grafting ninja. You never know. I might be like,
well,
bam.
All right, I gotta go, guys. I'll maybe see you tomorrow night. I might do it 8:00 tomorrow night. What is tomorrow?
Charlie.
Yeah. Charlie.
Hey, what's up, Mark? What you got going on tonight?
I just piddling around, going through boxes still.
That's what I've been doing today, going through boxes, getting my comb, finding out which one's got wax moth destroyed. And, those plastic frames, the ones that get hit with the wax moths, man, they even turned like a powdery, I don't know if it's mold or what, but it was nasty. Like you scrape them and there's like dust powder coming off of them. It was pretty nasty. So
give them the old power washer.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to hit it with the power washer. Hey, if they're dishwasher safe, maybe even the dishwasher. Throw 'em up
Yeah,
in
but
the
then you're gonna stop the dishwasher up with wax.
Yeah, you don't want that beeswax going into your pipes.
Yeah,
That'll clog up your pipes really good too.
that'll be a mess. Yeah, no doubt.
So they'll chew through plastic frames? Is that what you're saying?
No, they didn't chew through it, but the wax, it's like for some reason, that webbing that was on there, it started turning like I don't know if it's a mold or a mildew or what, but it was like I was scraping it off of there and it was just like mold spores or something. It's like powder that was coming out. It was not good, but
A power washer, get that.
And then re-waxing them, right? So now it's like, do I have enough wax to do that? So gonna have to do all that. It was pretty tough, but I did have a good 40, at least 40 frames. I've probably got more like 60 frames of drawn comb that's not being used right now. So when I make my splits, they're only going to get half drawn, right? Half undrawn. So they have to do some work in there.
That's a job, cleaning all that stuff up and re-waxing.
Yeah, and I'm behind the 8 ball on it too. So you know why? Because every night I'm on a live stream. I get off work, it's like, oh shit, I got to do a live stream tonight.
That's it. You yell at me for not coming on, but I'm getting stuff done while I'm listening, Bob.
Yeah. And I'm not. I'm absolutely not. And
right. I'm trying. When I get tired, then I'm like, well, I'm gonna pay attention to YouTube for a minute here.
That's right.
I get burnt out after a while.
Yeah.
How you doing on your stuff, Brian? You about ready?
Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm getting close. We just signed a contract to manage 20 more hives. So we've got to make some purchases for that. So that's kind of been something in the works. So all those frames I bought at Hive Life were for that purpose. It just wasn't sure it was actually happening yet. So we put some,
not to get into your business too much, unless you choose to share that information. But when you say manage hives, are they actually paying for those hives and you're managing them, or are you placing them on their property?
So I manage hives for a couple of different people or companies for a couple of different situations. Actually, this is the first company I'm going to be managing hives for. Everything else has been like private people. So this is a solar farm who's hiring me to put 20 hives on their property so they can get some dual use status out of their property. So they're paying me to just do what I do on their property. I get the honey, I get the yield, every yield from the bees I get. So they just get the
off of their colonies, you get the splits.
Yeah.
I'd split them suckers down. That's what I'd do.
Well, I'm gonna be making honey out there. Well, we have to build everything up first, right? I'm actually going out there on Thursday to go check out the site. This is a solar farm that's being built, so I'm gonna walk around with the project manager, kind of scope it out a little bit. But I'll be putting colonies in there starting. Well, depending on their readiness, I could put 10 colonies on there tomorrow, and then the idea is I'll have 20 on there by May. And then all I do is I go there and manage them, do what I do. It's just they're giving me another apiary and they're paying me for it. So that purchase I was talking about earlier, that's the reason why, right? That's the reason why I can make that purchase.
But are they buying the bees from you? Like, are you?
My bees, my equipment, my boxes.
All right.
Yeah. So other situations, people buy. Either they have the bees and I manage it and they have the equipment and I manage it, or they've purchased bees from me and I manage their bees in their equipment, kind of thing.
Right. So basically they're just giving you the space to use to manage the bee.
And a check to do that.
Oh, they're paying you to do it. Okay. Well, hey, that works out.
Yeah.
It's really nice to have a check, ain't it?
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So I've got some stuff to do for that. And that actually, we've been working on this since October, but we just signed the contract on Thursday. So now that it's a signed contract kind of thing, that's put different steps into place. So I've been preparing for it in many ways, mentally and financially. And now that we're here, we've got to, pull the rest of the triggers.
But now
Brian, how are they? Go ahead.
No, I was about to say, now you got all the boxes and everything that you got to get for that, and the frames and.
Well, I got all the frames at Hive Life, and that was part of the point of me getting the frames, because I figured if I didn't get the gig, I was still going to use the frames anyway, right? The part of my increase is because of this gig. So if I was going to buy like boxes and I didn't get the gig, I wasn't sure I was going to be able to use those, or I could probably still turn them around and make money by selling them. But so I've got to buy 20 deep boxes. I'm going to make some migratory lids. I've got pretty much everything else as far as equipment goes, except for the 20 deep boxes. And then I got to make stands. There's everything else that goes with it. I got to put stands out there. I'm going to put like a trail cam out there because it's like 15 miles from where I live. So it's a big deal. That's a big step for us.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Brian,
besides
let me
that,
ask you this: how are they looking at it? Because them little solar yards are going up everywhere around here. I'm looking at it as how are they looking at it to pay you? I mean, what's their point of view?
I don't know what legal laws, what laws they're taking advantage of specifically, what specific tax breaks they're getting. They actually reached out to me. The lady who's the project manager called me up out of the blue saying, hey, we've got this solar farm. We're looking to do a dual use thing. We found you because I went to a festival and I bought your hot honey at your booth. And that's how, Mark, that's how we got this gig, because of our hot honey this summer. So honestly, I don't know much of the details about how they're getting the tax breaks. I couldn't point to what laws they're using specifically. That's something I hope to kind of squeeze out of them a little bit as I kind of build this relationship. But
I had heard something about that whenever I was looking into the solar things, and I'd heard some people talking about putting bees on it for extra something, but I don't know. I didn't get enough about it to figure out what they was doing exactly,
Yeah. And I know, I'm sure some of you are familiar with the whole, what's called a greenwashing industry in the beekeeping industry, where, some folks, this is their business model, where they seek out corporate sponsors to do this kind of stuff, helping those corporations get these tax breaks and putting a hive or two on that corporate property, that kind of thing. So the way I look at it, they might be getting some really cool tax breaks, but it's working out for me as a small scale beekeeper. It's going to help me be really successful. It's going to provide some educational opportunities, because part of what I actually wrote into the contract was providing educational opportunities for their company. So being a solar company, they at least claim to be green minded and, environmentally minded. So I think there'll be some pretty cool opportunities that way. I'm still learning about the company itself, so it's a pretty big learning curve for me.
It's really going to help you. That way you're not going to be so scattered out so bad. You can concentrate quite a few more hives there in one area now.
That's right. Great. So one of my big problems has been 2 hives here, 3 hives here, 4 hives there, and I'll still have that, but for just about half of my colonies. Whereas now I can go drive to one place, spend all day and take care of 20 colonies, and that's gonna not get rid of that problem, but certainly help that problem quite a bit.
Gonna cut down on your time for sure.
And you could also find your biggest pain in the ass out yards and be like, yeah, I'm pulling these bees. They're going over to this other yard where I can stop one place instead of 30.
That's right. And having another out apiary where I can drop swarms or move things back and forth. And, I live on about a half an acre, but I live in suburbia. I got people all around me, and I've got I think I've got like 15 colonies in my backyard right now. And at some point, it's going to hit the fan. And I figure this is an opportunity for me to get a lot of colonies out of my backyard and keep my neighbors happy. And it's going to work out really well for us.
Well, the other thing that would have been just made it a little bit sweeter is if you could have charged them for the nukes. Yep, I'll bring bees out, but it's going to cost you $200 a nuke. And
but they're my bees. That's the cool thing. So
Yeah.
I actually have done that. There's one farm that I manage bees for, and when I started my relationship with them,
that's the setup.
They purchased 3 nukes from me, and then I managed those 3 nukes throughout the year. And it was one of those where like the chef and the gardener had tried beekeeping before, and they died over the winter, and they had no idea what they're doing. So it was easy for someone with me of my background to walk in, and they can go, okay, this guy clearly knows what he's doing. We're just going to step back. We're going to pay him, because it was some rich family that is just creating like this big hobby farm on 30 acres. So I don't even know the family. I've just met the property manager. I've met the chef. I've met the farmer. So after they had like the farmer who tried beekeeping before and failed miserably, I came in and they were like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. We're just going to pay him and let him take care of the bees for us.
Our state, well, the city, the sewage water treatment plant, right? They've got this huge, I call it a spray field, but they don't really spray out there by the plant. And I don't know if that's where they take the runoff or sewage or whatever, but they had that thing planted a few years ago with nothing but sunflowers. I mean, it was huge. If I could have got in on that deal and put hives out there, that would have been awesome. Hey, you guys are doing this. Why don't you let me drop my colonies here?
Right.
And
pollinate. And I'm sure you've seen the information lately about how sunflowers have some sort of benefit to bees. They're not exactly sure what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can go to a company like that and be like, look, you're helping bees. This is what you're doing. You're not just growing pollinator plants. You're growing a specific pollinator plant that's beneficial to one of the biggest problems that bees are having. And when a business hears that they're benefiting something like that, they think to themselves, we can leverage this story for our customers, right? So they're going to want to make a relationship with you so they can say, hey, we're helping Bob save the bees, right? And they can,
and then people
it makes them look good.
Honey, because you can say, hey, that big sunflower field that the state planted? Well, this is the honey that comes off of that field. So that would be
it's $2.99.
Yeah. Or 3,000 Canadian.
So the one big irony about it is, so we live in Lakewood, which is on the west side of the metro area, and this solar farm is in Aurora, which is on the eastern side of the metro area. So it's like a 40-minute drive to get from where we live to this solar farm. My wife used to work in Aurora, about a half of a mile from the location of where they're building this solar farm. So at first we were like, oh, sweet, this will be great. I'll go out there once a week. We'll have lunch together. She actually ended up just getting a job in the school district that we live in. So she no longer has to drive out to Aurora every single day, which is great for her. But I just got a job in Aurora, and then she just quit her job in Aurora and got a job out here. So it's actually doubly good because she's getting a better job and she's getting paid more. So both of us are having this great kind of financial kind of push forward. It's going to give us a pretty big year. Yeah, we're excited.
Yeah.
Kind of thinking about this being my last year doing the teaching thing and then just doing bees, because my brain's in like 2 different places and I'd like it to all be in one. Yeah, that'd be nice.
Well, it makes it real hard to go to that day job when your sideline gig is bringing you more every 2 weeks than your paycheck is. It's nice to have both, but like you said, could you be making more money doing the sideline gig if you had 100% of your time? you know.
Right.
And that's what I'm fighting with my swarm lure, because with the swarm lure, I've got companies that are starting to buy it. And when they buy it, you know, okay, so Peerco is going to buy some. They're buying 64 bottles as a trial. That's $800, you know, in swarm lure or whatever it is. And so you do that, and then you got another company that buys 100 bottles, you know, and it's like now now I'm making more money doing swarm lure and Apis than I am on my day job, you know. So it's like, which one's going to win? I know which one I want to win, you know.
Me too.
What keeps me to my day job is health insurance. That's my big thing. I've got cancer, so I got to have that health insurance, you know.
Well, see, and with me, I've got VA disability, right? A small check, but the VA covers my health insurance, but not my wife's. So and the problem is that with me working, for me to insure her, I also have to insure myself, right? There is not just a spouse policy on my insurance. So like last year, this time I wasn't working, and I would go out 3 or 4 nights a week and just Uber. And I was making enough doing Uber to pay my bills, but we didn't have that health insurance.
Yeah.
So
that's a biggie these days. Health insurance is high.
Yep.
And we're lucky enough that we get all of ours through my wife. And then we used to get all of ours through mine when I was a full-time teacher. But now that I'm a half-time teacher, I would just have to pay into it. So I just get it through her, and so do our kids. So you're right. That's a huge cost.
It costs me about $25,000 a year just for me and my wife. When you figure it all up, I'm paying about 10 in premiums, and then I've got a $7,500 deductible a piece. So you figure it up. That's plus what I owe when I get out of the hospital or whatever, you know, another 20% or whatever.
Yeah.
You can figure you're paying about $30,000 at least a year just for health insurance. And that's with the company helping you out on top of it, you know.
Supposedly helping you out. How much are they really helping you out, though?
Exactly.
I mean, the same thing. My health insurance with this company for me and my wife, now dental and vision, I'm paying over $700 a month.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I think it's like $750 or something like that.
So you're right there where I'm at. It's costing you right at $10,000, and
they only cover 80%, right? Until you hit that deductible, and then they pay the rest of it. So it's
but if you ain't got it, all they gonna do is stabilize you and send you on your way most of the time, you know, anymore.
And then take that money out of your tax refund, right? That you owe, your state tax refund. They'll take out any doctor bills out of that before you get it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
you go to the hospital, and then a couple of weeks later you get about 80 different bills from 80 different people, and you're like, what is all this? Right. There's no way you can keep up with it. They know that, you know.
And it is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I lease it out for cows. Okay. Looking at Philip's comment there. It's I've got, that's my thing, right? I've got people that said, hey, I've got 300 acres out here that I put, I don't know, they do collards and all, you know, soybeans and stuff like that you could bring bees out to. Well, yeah, if I had enough to do 300 acres, you know, to just bring them out there because you want some help, you know what I mean? It's like, you want that kind of bee coverage, then you need to pony up, monkey boy, because this costs money, you know?
Yeah.
And I was explaining that to the guy that came and worked on my heating unit today. And he started looking at my piles of equipment over there. And you know, I said, well, people ask why honey's so expensive. And I said, well, you see that box right there? He's like, yeah. I said, well, when I started buying them, they were $17 a box. And I got each one of those frames for $1.45. But to replace that equipment, it's $27 a box. And about $4 or $5 a frame now. So it's like each one of those boxes you're looking at is $75 sitting there, and I've got stacks and stacks of them outside that aren't even being used. So it's like, yeah, if you want me to bring it, I'll bring it, but you're going to pay for it.
For 2023, we changed our management prices for that exact reason. The cost of equipment going up, the cost of gas, the cost of wood, the cost of sugar, the cost of everything makes taking care of bees more expensive. The cost of jars, everything goes up. Someone made a comment, gosh, it was like I don't know, like 30 minutes, an hour ago when we were talking about buying stuff. They said like their boss told them at one point that tools are never going to get cheaper than they are today, right? So if you're going to buy something, today's as cheap as it's ever going to be to buy whatever it is that they're just going to get more expensive from here. So we wrote up our change of price letter and we sent it out to our customers. But I think people understand, like all prices are going up these days. They know.
Almost all of my profit goes right back into bees anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Not all of it, I can't say, but the vast majority of it goes right back either in the bees boxes or labels, jars, or something.
Right.
Just to stay ahead of the game.
It's actually cheaper to sell bigger volumes, like instead of selling 1 pound bottles, selling pints, because I can get a pint mason jar, smooth one, for 80 cents, 90 cents, right? So I'm in at $1. So that means I made $14 profit, where if I'm selling it for $10 and $10 for a pound, well, I've got the same dollar in the bottle and label that I have on the pint, maybe a little bit less, but so I'm making $9.50 on a pound as compared to $14 on a pound and a half.
And not all of us have fancy bottling machines, so the less jars you have to bottle, the more time you're saving.
Over there.
I give my bottling to my wife and I let her keep the money. She runs all the stores. I don't even fool with it. I bought her $1,000 worth of jars, said, here, do what you can do with it. I'll worry about the bees. The money I make from the bees will go back into the bees. And when you get enough profit where you can buy you some more bottles, go for it, So.
And that's the thing. I mean, I still got some bottles left, but I'll have to order another case of squeeze bottles or whatever coming up. I got plenty of lids, but I need bottles.
That's where they get you on them lids.
Oh yeah, because we'll sell you 300 bottles, but a case of lids is 1,700. So yeah. And then the shipping, right? The shipping to you. So that's the other part. So, and I think that, gosh, I hate to say all bee supply stores because that's pretty inclusive, right? But when I started looking at pallets of boxes, and greed plays a lot in it, guys. I mean, when you start looking at beekeeping supply stores and they're trying to sell you boxes for $27 a piece, when they are taking advantage of the fact that most people can't buy a pallet or don't need a whole pallet of boxes, right? If you bought that thing, instead of making $7 or $8 on a box, why do you have to make $12 on a $12 box or $15 on a $12 box? Why don't you keep that I mean, yeah, stuff's going up, I get it, but if I could order 150 boxes at $12.30 a piece, I know they're doing it for at least $12.30 a piece, maybe even less. So why do they have to get $27 for that box? I mean, I understand you got to make it worth your while, but who goes up and buys one box? Not me. Unless it's licensed. Unless it's the licensed boxes, then it's one. But I mean, it's you can buy a pallet. I've seen them anywhere from 100, 150 to 200 boxes on a pallet. unassembled. You still have to assemble them, but for
I
100,
bought 5 at a time for a long time. Just buy 5 in a box, put them together, paint them,
yeah.
go. Buy 5 more, you know.
Well, I mean, it's different. Like when I was buying them and they were 17 and charging me $2, so 5 boxes $100, right?
Right.
So now it's like,
That's like 150.
oh yeah, I just bought 2. I just bought 2 wooden boxes that are 7/8 with frames. They were $65 a piece with the frames. And so, I mean, that's $130 for 2 boxes and frames. Now I needed the frames. So, I mean, that's a plus, but, you know, you're definitely going to get the best pricing by the pallet, but most of us can't buy pallets of stuff or, you know, don't want to buy a pallet.
And then if you buy the commercial stuff, they don't fit together. They got a 1/4-inch gap in between boxes. You know, you've got to pretty much, if you want good boxes, buy the select, and you're going to pay out the yazoo for them. Depends on where you get them, but.
Do you guys have favorite places you buy your woodenware from?
Well, I was buying all of mine from Blythewood Bee Company. Why? Because they were convenient, and I like to go pick
Where did that woodenware come from, though? They
South
didn't make
Florida Bee Supply.
Okay.
And you can get boxes from them if you're buying them by the pallet for like $11.
Yeah. Apparently, I need to move to Amish country to get some good woodenware.
The problem is with that they don't have a phone, and you can't call them and tell them you're coming.
But they know how to use the damn credit card machine.
Yeah,
they know how to use that piece of technology. Yeah. So there's.
I tell you, if I had someone like that around me, I'd have them build like rough cut interior boxes. I want to see
that
what
would be
these
sweet
do with that propolis. So I just rough mine up with like a sawzall kind of thing, just to jag it up all the inside of it. And they propolize it up a little bit, but wherever I make good marks, you know, so the more I scuff it up, the more they'll propolize the inside of it.
I think if they're propolized around the entrance is more beneficial, I would think, because everybody that comes in there's got to walk over that propolis, and then it just gets scattered everywhere from there.
Yeah.
You know, so rough up around that entrance and try to get it around that entrance. I think it'll benefit you. I really do.
Yeah.
Just from what I've seen, because they like them holes, like on these boxes right here. They'll propolize all inside that, and there'll be a little old gap in there left to get in there. And they have to walk on it.
As far as boxes, I feel like I could order that. I could order that pallet, and I could sell those boxes for $10, or sorry, not $10. I would lose, but $20 a box, and sell them all. Sell as many as I could order in and get in, right? And become a spot that people would like to order from, and it would be healthy competition and help. Well, it wouldn't help drive the prices down for, you know, the Man Lakes of the world. But, you know, we explained that earlier that like with the wax, right? The wax is more expensive because when you spend $150, they're sending it to you for free.
Yeah.
But it's just built in.
You got to watch, though, too. As things go up, people's money starts getting tight. They don't spend as much money. They spend what they have to have, and that's it.
Right.
So, kind of got to look out for that.
There's a lively chat conversation about jars and different size jars and prices and glasses versus plastic. I think all that kind of stuff is very regional. Like we go to Florida, visit our in-laws all the time, and we always go to markets there, check out the honey people. Everybody's selling in a plastic squeeze bottle. I think that's a very regional thing for the South and the Southeast. Our honey crystallizes so quickly, so to put it in a squeeze bottle would just be stupid. It would just be poor marketing.
Yeah, the other part is when it starts to
put it in glass.
Even when you put it in like a warmer, it doesn't do the same. The glass, like if I put a pint jar in there that's starting to crystallize, by the next morning it's good to go. But the plastic, not so much. But with that being said, I've sent out jars in boxes with bubble wrap around it, glass, and one of them always breaks, so it ends up costing me more. So for shipping, I prefer the plastic. But
that's right.
But people, when they come up, they like that glass jar. I've thought about maybe going to something different.
And then glass is heavier to ship as well. So even if you figure out the packaging, you're still going to be paying more for the shipping. Glass is better, though, if it's heavier, if the customer's picking it up, because the customer picks up that glass jar and it feels like more as opposed to that plastic container. So just that weight from the hand's perspective is a benefit.
Let me see what
Plus, they can put it off in some warm water on that glass where they can't that plastic.
Right.
Yeah. And Lee, I prefer glass from a seller's perspective, but man, there's nothing easier than putting honey on something out of a squeeze bottle. It is just so convenient. So as a consumer,
it does have that nice seal that goes in there when you screw the lid on too.
Yeah, so from a seller, I love the glass jar. But as a buyer, I kind of like the squeeze bottle.
So it's one of those things. It's just easy for me, if I'm toting them around in the truck, the plastic jars do fine. But yeah, I prefer the glass for marketing, right? You can get better, different designs, better options. But they're so doggone expensive. I mean, you might as well just add $1 to at least. I mean, when I was ordering them off of Amazon, the 1 pound jars, it was like $1.45 a jar for a 1 pounder. And, it's just that's $1 profit on every bottle. You're just giving away if you're selling at the same $10. But
so we do 12-ounce jars. So they're 10 ounce by volume. So when you put 10 ounces of volume in it, it's 12 ounces by weight. And we end up buying cases of 20 off of Amazon. They come to like a case of 20, I think, is $21 plus shipping. But it's cheaper than buying them from the bee stores. They're so much more expensive. But for us, I mean, doing the math is exactly what we do. Those are costs that we incorporate into our prices because we buy really nice jars and we make it look top shelf and our prices match that look, right? So you just have to think sometimes it's worth it. We just bought 500 soap boxes, right? So that's one of the things I've been working on this past week, designing the packaging for the soap box. Like up to now, we've been kind of making our own, like cutting strips of paper, wrapping it around, sticking a sticker on it. And we bought 1,000 soap boxes for our soaps that came to 48 cents per box. And those boxes will make our soaps look, I guarantee, 48 cents nicer. So we can easily incorporate the cost of that box into our soap to have it pay for ourselves. And we're going to sell a whole lot more soap because it's packaged nicer.
Was that salve or balm that you did today?
Yeah, that was last night. Yeah.
But
that was my post today. That was my last night's work.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm probably selling my honey too cheap. I mean, Sam sells his higher than mine, right? But he doesn't make as much. That goes back to that whole nuke thing, right? Well, are you making $200 on less nukes, or are you making $185 on more nukes? Does it even out money wise? So, perception is marketing. Absolutely. If you can, let me see, 12-ounce glass case, $10.35. That Better Bee. But Better Bee is going to charge you a shit ton to ship it to you.
A whole lot more than Amazon, because Amazon's coming from a warehouse across the city, whereas Better Bee's coming from New York. And that's a bummer, because I'd rather give my money to Better Bee, but I got a business to run.
Not one person complained about the price. Well, yeah, I mean, I think if I go up on my price this year, there won't be much complaint. Supply and demand, right? I mean, it's just like, hey, gas is higher, shipping's higher, that box that the bees live in is higher, the cost of getting bees is higher. You could definitely make it a logical assumption. At the end of the day, if they don't want to buy it, they drove it to my house for nothing, So,
the cost of weed eater string went up.
Yep. Everything.
Yeah, and Rockbridge saying having a nice label makes a big difference. Having smart branding makes a big difference. When we started the market scene, we watched a couple different people, because you start to see the same people all the time.
Right.
And there was this one guy who was a soap maker that we watched in particular, just because his branding, you could tell he came out of the advertising world, right? He was an exec kind of dropout, started a soap business, but he knew how to dial in his branding. He had his logo, which was it told a great story, and it was simple, and it was all over everything he had. So having a story and having something visual that some people are going to immediately recognize you, and it's attractive, I think makes it a really big difference. So we've spent time, we go to like Whole Foods or other places that have like honey, really nice honey, and we'll just look at the labels and look at the information they put on the labels to try to make our product the best that it can be.
That's the other reason why I don't buy my labels from like Better Bee or Man Lake, because they're all the same. All the labels are the same. So, you want to look a little bit different, right? I mean, like even my hot honey, the name is changed, the label looks different. Very easy if I'm picking up my jars that I can tell, oh, that's the wrong one, or little stinger, whatever. It's just different. And I'm not the best artist as far as designing and stuff like that, but I could pay someone to do that, a few bucks.
That's right.
$5, design me this and let it go.
Yeah, if I had my way, I'd just sell it out with drum and be done with it.
Just bring your mason jar and we'll fill her up for you.
I've seen Mark, that's an important conversation to have with yourself too. My wife and
I've had that
spend a lot of time at markets, so you could walk away with five gallons of honey sold and less money, but you're going to have a whole lot more time to sell more 5-gallon buckets of honey. So, I'm going to sit down every year and do the math on how much money I made at markets, and then think to myself, okay, if I went to a bucket model and I sold my buckets at this amount, what would that give me and what would that free me up? Now, going to markets allows you to sell all the other add-on products that we rely on beyond honey that we wouldn't be able to do if we did buckets. So if we went to a model like that, it might be like a half and half kind of thing. Because like Bob, all those salves you saw, I made 85 of them. We'll sell those for $15 each. 85 times 15 was the amount of work I did last night.
And that's important. I mean, when you're calculating your time and everything and investing into it, and
time and overhead, because you got overhead in it,
That's right.
Well, the thing is, let's say you do start selling 5-gallon pails. All right, so I've seen them anywhere from $230 to $300 for a 5-gallon pail, depending who is selling it and whether shipping's included or whatever. But you got to figure that's 61-pound jars that you didn't have to buy to fill. You know what I mean?
Right.
And labels.
So you figure what does a jar and label now cost? 1 pound average.
Well,
$1.
And I always estimate 50 cents a sticker, and it depends on the sticker, it depends on the label, but that's always my ballpark.
$1
so
to
you
$1.
Figure you got $70 in bottles, just say for instance, out of a 60-pound bucket.
Now then you subtract the cost of the bucket. You've got to compare the cost of the bucket to those, because you still have packaging. Yep,
Yeah.
that's a big. And then you're dealing with one customer versus 60 customers.
Yep.
That is time
Yeah,
there.
but what if you
Yep.
picked up one bakery, Mark, and they're like, "Yeah, I need 300 pounds of honey," and you're
Right.
like, "Here's your five buckets," and
You get your check and you go to the house and work bees.
you just
you
made
know.
$1,500 on
Right.
honey that you have sitting in your warehouse right there somewhere over there. I know you have
Right.
buckets.
Right. They're in the warehouse froze, so no big deal.
So yeah, that
But it takes time to get there though. You know.
right.
It's like,
But
where Brian is building his customer base. See, he's going to have a broader customer base where I don't spend that kind of time to do that. You know.
Right.
And that's what I was going to say. I'm pounding the pavement, getting to meet the community directly by going to all these markets. That's how I got that solar farm gig.
Right.
I wouldn't have got that if I was walking around with buckets to breweries.
So like I just got 3 coffee shops, right? And they're very busy. I thought about going and just set up inside that coffee shop. Just set up, put my bee suit on and talk to people coming in. You know.
Now, how does that work in your state as far as having a display in someone else's store? Are you selling that honey to the coffee shop and they're reselling it?
Yep.
So you don't have to have special inspections and stuff like that in your state?
I'm allowed 150 gallons and I can sell to any market I want to sell to. But when I step up over 150 gallons, say for instance, I want to sell by the drum, I can't sell by the drum because the guy that's buying it in the drum, I have to show that I've got a honey house that's inspected, right? Or he's not going to buy it from me because he's going to be selling it to Walmart or wherever. He's,
Right.
that packer has to have everything lotted down where he knows where it come from, what honey house it comes from, and everything. It's a lot more to it when you step into that big of it. It's you've got to spend a lot of money. I don't ever see at my age if I spent that kind of money that I'd ever recover.
Mine changes as soon as I sell it to someone else. If I'm selling it direct to the consumer, I can sell 400 gallons. If I'm selling to somebody that's reselling it, then I have to go through the inspection process.
Really?
So that's when James, I don't know if you caught that the other night, James rents the space in the store. So he pays for that space. So the customer, when they buy it, are buying it directly from James instead of from the store. So I don't know if that's a workaround here or not, but he rents that space just like Brian does at the market, right? You rent the booth and
yeah, kind of like the antique stores do.
Like a consignment.
Yeah.
Yep.
So hey, I'll bring you 12 cases of honey. We'll put it on your display there. And this is how many you got today. And when I come back, whatever I've sold, just pay me my money for it.
I find, though, that it sells better like Brian is there in person.
You can talk
your honey's going to sell better. You go and put it in the store, then people don't know who you are. They walk in, they see your name, but that's all they see. It's just,
It's a disconnect, right? There's nothing separating you from all the other brands of honey in the store.
Right.
And Bob knows, too, that a tasting station always sells honey. I think that's part of it, too. We sell a lot of honey to people that weren't planning on buying honey.
Right.
It's the, hey, have you tasted local honey? Come and stop for a second. We got all these. You don't have to buy anything. I just want you to taste this. We're really proud of it.
Yeah, it's free here.
And we get so many people buying it that wouldn't have stopped if we didn't engage them as they were walking by. So I think having that taste.
Oh, you're that guy. Hey, come stop. Get your free knives. Come over.
I'm not that guy. I'm his little brother. Yeah.
Mike in the speaker. Hey, man, you look like you need to try some honey today.
Like we have some beekeeper here in Colorado that he's a pretty big beekeeper. I don't know how big exactly, but he does the market scene. But he goes to markets and he hires like college age kids. So he is at 20 different markets on a Saturday. And at first I was like, man, I'm not going to that market if he's there. I can't compete with that big guy. But I learned really quickly that we can. Because those college age kids, nothing against those college age kids, but you go up to and you talk to them and you're like, are you the beekeeper? No, but I really like bees. I want to be a beekeeper someday. Right. But you come up to our booth. Are you the beekeeper? Yeah, I'm the beekeeper. This is our observation hive. I pulled these bees out of a frame in my backyard, and I can tell you exactly where this honey came from that I pulled and extracted and put in this jar on this day. So they get the beekeepers
hive with you to the market.
You bet. Absolutely. You want to slow people down, you bring bees with you and they'll stop and they'll look at your bees.
Now all you need is that acrylic bottling tank so people can bring their own jars and you just fill their up on
refill it right there.
Yeah.
Right? But we used to go, oh, we're not going to go to that market because we can't compete with that guy's story. But our story could compete with that guy's story. Now, we still try to avoid the markets that he himself goes to directly because he is a big attraction, right? But if it's that college age kid, it's just another booth at the market. I'm not worried about it.
See, I thought about, we've got flea markets, right? A couple real popular flea markets that actually have like stores in them, right? Where the person rents the whole thing out and it's a store. I thought about putting a bee supply store in one of those. So, hey, most people that buy bee supplies do it on the weekend, right? Because they're working their day job. And if not, then, hey, you're going to ship it by the internet, right? So, and then you can sell your honey there. You can or your mark and you just build every damn thing. Take all the money out of everybody's mouth. No, I'm just kidding.
The thing is, though, Bob, if you're the only one in the area, you can put you a shed out back. They'll come and buy it out of your backyard. It doesn't matter because you're the only one in the area to get it from.
There's only one competitor. And, you know, he's 30 miles away from me. And at Blythewood Bee Company. But the thing is the overhead, right? I mean, that's why I was thinking if I put one of them sheds out there, Mike could just run it out of the shed, right?
Yeah.
But the so it's all baby steps, and right now the main thing for me is just get my bees together, right? Get that running. Everything else, I got time, but that for sure needs to happen first.
You just want to build this year mainly and make a honey crop, right?
Yeah, I'm going to try to build. You know, honey's a welcome side effect of having bees, right? So mainly going to focus on just building those colonies and get the numbers up. And then, you know, next year it's a different situation, hopefully, than this year has been. And just be able to grow, you know. I've got 4 nukes committed that I've kind of I haven't pre-sold because they haven't given me any money. So, I mean, 4 of those that I split will be sold if they show up with the cash. But other than that, it's going to be another building year, just trying to get it consistent, right? Get my systems down, get it consistent to where I don't have to put any more money out for bees. And if people need queens, great. I got queens that I'm grafting hopefully by the end of the year. And, you know, definitely in the beginning of the year, I'm going to start doing it next few weeks, probably, just to try. I mean, until you practice it and get it going, you know, and maybe not a lot of success in the beginning, but until I start doing it, we won't know. So just gotta do it. So that's what
my plan is to sell what I sell, but I don't really plan on growing per se. I'm sure I probably will, but I want to tweak what I got, you know. I want to make them better. I've got a lot of things in mind that I want to do in that area right now.
Well,
Whatever I sell, I sell. But
that's the same thing. I haven't advertised selling nukes or queens or anything. Even what I sold last year, I didn't advertise. The store, the beekeeping supply store, had my number, and they said, "Hey, you can try this guy." And if they called me, obviously I got them, right. I had them, but
yeah,
but I didn't, I didn't run a Facebook ad saying, "Hey, I got nukes. You want nukes?" or anything like that. It's just trying to grow kind of organically, but trying to press myself to grow into my equipment, because I've got more equipment than I have bees. And I was hoping I'd be further along, but didn't work out that way. Grow the way that we can.
I'm gonna try to add about 10 or 15 new honey supers to get them pulled out this year. I don't usually try to pull a whole lot. 10. If I do 10 a year, I feel pretty good about it as far as building my honey supers up.
So
how many honey supers do you have now, Mark?
I don't really know. That's a good question.
Like 100, 200?
No, probably 60 to 80, maybe. Something like that.
2 per production colony?
Yeah. If that many, I work them hard, Brian. I work them hard. I get them full. I come off. I put more on. Constant. It's a never-ending job.
Now, are you checkerboarding those, like drawn comb, undrawn, that type of deal, or are you just putting a whole box of undrawn and let them go to work on it?
Sometimes I checkerboard them. Yeah, it depends on how heavy the flow is. Sometimes I just put a whole thing of foundation on them and let them do their thing. But now I'm constantly splitting too, Brian. Like I'm telling you, I'm working my honey, and that's a lot of work, but I'm constantly splitting at the same time. So when I'm moving them honey boxes, I'm taking brood. Usually I'm doing something,
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
But most of the time, once I get my nukes going, I can split from them nukes and just leave my production colonies alone. If I had enough pulled comb, set 3 boxes up there and walk away and let them have it. But I don't have that. I don't have that many, to do that.
I definitely don't have that many.
And 2, you have to play your area. I've got one area over here that their honey flow is a little different than the honey flow here. So I want all my boxes here at the first part of the year, and in the middle part of the year, I want them over there, and then I want them back over here, so I've got to play that game too.
But you find yourself pulling a super off and spinning it out and giving it back to them?
Oh, yeah. 2 or 3 times a year, at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at, is if I should, like, I've got some drawn comb now. I didn't have that much drawn comb last year, but I start, having some drawn comb. But now it's figuring out, well, how do I need to work that going forward? If I under super with an empty one and put a drawn one on top and let them work it out, like under super it, or if I just give them the whole box, or if I checkerboard the 2 boxes and put them on there and let them go to work. So that's kind of where I'm trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah, that I would just experiment with different ways there if I was you.
The more I participate in these conversations, the more I realize I've kind of built my management practices around my context, which is obvious for everybody, but so much of how I've grown has been through swarms. And like my first reaction is like, catch swarms, have swarms draw comb out for you. But I don't know that your ability to catch swarms is the same as in my area. Like we have this great swarm hotline through the Colorado State Beekeeping Association. So if you have time during the swarm season and you're in the Denver metro area, man, it's just about how many swarms you can go run around and catch. So I catch swarms and I make them draw out comb, and I don't mess with my production colonies. Maybe they'll have like 2 foundations in there per box to draw out per season at this point in my career. But now I've been lucky enough to just put those swarms to work. That's how
Yeah.
I've been drawing out comb.
I draw out a lot like that. Like last year, I caught 8 swarms out of one tree in my yard.
Yeah.
Just because I got behind.
So you have to understand, I had a buddy of mine who lives in the Denver area too. He just went full time. Last year, he had 9 swarm calls in one day. That's one day. So it was just about how many boxes could he fit in his truck.
Yeah.
So
I get called or messaged usually on Facebook when someone posts a picture. I got a swarm. Anybody that can come get this, then I get tagged on it, right? Then I contact them.
yeah.
Where's it at?
And then the more you do them, the more people call you back. I actually just sold 2 nukes from some guy who I caught his swarm in his tree last year. It was like a beekeeper. His colony swarmed. He gave me the swarm. I caught it for him. I walked away with it. He called me a week ago saying, "You got nukes this year?" Sure. So he bought 2 nukes from me.
So, sell them back to him.
I don't even know which one it is. That's the thing.
Instead of them having to pull out honeycomb, though, see, I'm having them pull out broodcomb. I want the broodcomb. I don't really want so much honeycomb. It's broodcomb.
And I do both, Mark. I'll throw a couple of drawn frames in, like a 10-frame box, make them draw out the rest of the foundation, and then I'll throw a queen excluder on top and then make them draw out mediums. If they still want to draw comb after they take that 10-frame box, then they can draw some medium out for me.
Right. Yep. I do the same thing, Brian.
And it takes syrup. Syrup helps, even if you have a flow. That's going to push them even farther forward than they would go either way, otherwise. But I'm realizing, like, man, I've really benefited from that kind of structure that Colorado's had in place. I've really benefited from the Colorado Food Act on how I've sold honey here. Either I've really benefited or I've been smart about how I've made it work for me. And maybe it's a little bit of both of them. But I think that's the point I'm trying to make, is you've got to find your context and figure out a way to maximize that context for your situation.
See, I can't go on Saturday and sit all day somewhere. I've got to be working bees. I don't have time. I've got Saturday and Sunday. You go to church on Sunday, that leaves you an hour or two on Sunday, maybe, if you've got that. So, time.
I just got an email from Hivegate. Kyle presents on Tuesday Night Live with Kodiak Farms Bees and Walker Bee Ranch. So they sent out a company email of the presentation.
He was super nervous too, and it was so nice that once he got into talking about his product, you could tell how he got really excited.
Yeah.
Well, and I get it. He it's kind of it's not a conflict of interest, because the way I look at it is that product is helping fund your research, right? So it's a means to an end. I mean, so
and that's like he was like apologizing for selling his product, and I'm like, dude, no, believe in it. Stand up and be like, this product is awesome, and here's the science why, and that's why you should buy it, right? Don't be apologetic about believing in your product.
Right.
Well, I mean, he feels like when he's talking about it, people are feeling like it's a sales pitch, when I guess, in a way it is, but it's information. It's like an infomercial, right? You're showing people why this product is what it is. And I get it. I mean,
I know how to sell stuff.
Who, me?
Yeah.
No, I don't sell that much. I don't sell that much stuff. Just everything I do. No. So it's, it's one of those things that, hey, it's good research, right? I've never looked at a colony like that from the bottom. Yeah, I've looked at the bottom of a colony, but I've never watched a colony from the bottom of the colony to see how they do things. And so that was really enlightening to me. And that's why I had actually seen the presentation before we came on live before. So I sat through it twice, but that's why it was like, yeah, come on in, because I thought it was very interesting, and I'm leaded as well. As far as how that works, and so it made me understand the concept behind his product much more than me looking at Better Bee and I'm like, well, what is this?
Yeah.
That actually explained it. So,
And I've been thinking a lot about thermoregulation. I've been thinking about insulated lids. I've been looking at Etienne Tardif's work, and this guy's work too just kind of shows me that we really don't know much about the thermoregulation needs of a honeybee colony. And we do a lot of trying to compare it to a tree and what's happening in a tree, but the fact is it is a different context, and it's just not the same. So
right.
to make that comparison, I know it's helpful, but you can't always rely on that comparison. But we really don't know that. Like you look at research, you look at common professional research right now in overwintering, you can find multiple sources that will tell you put an upper entrance in over the winter. You can find just as many that will tell you don't put an upper entrance in throughout the winter. And it's all about thermoregulation.
So, DC,
I find the biggest thing, if they don't fit the box, you're going to have more trouble. If they fit the box,
they're going to have more trouble regulating that space. Whatever it is that they do it better when they have that more confined space. And that's why I like overwintering in singles.
And
like
use follower boards too. Use follower boards. If you've got them already in too big of a space, drop a following board in there. Tighten them up.
Me, my boxes are so small already with 8 frames, I can throw a frame feeder or 2 in there, and that often reduces the volume pretty. Yep.
Well, DC says I still think it accomplishes many of the same things as a slatted rack. It does, but with a slatted rack, the bees cannot control that space. That's you trying to control the space for the bees. And with that hive gate, the bees actually can put their cluster down in that and seal off any airflow from coming into the colony. And a slatted rack, because it's got slats the whole cluster, that they can't plug the whole thing up, right? But yes, the slatted rack does stop that airflow from coming up, but it doesn't allow the bees to plug that and control it as efficiently, in my mind. But I could be wrong.
I just think that a whole lot of it is the bees have to fit the box they're in.
Yeah.
Right.
That's where most people have problems.
Well,
they got too big a box for what they have bees.
Is when I put them into winter, they fit the box. And as our seasons change, right? And as that fluctuation and we're getting that bee die off, the cluster is shrinking the whole time. So now, by this time of the year, the cluster's too small for the box they're in. So now do I take them out and put them back in a 5-framer?
Put a following board in there. Drop a following board in there and tighten them up. That's the easiest way. You ain't got to move them, ain't got to do nothing. Just open the lid, drop a following board in there, and scoot them all in there, and done.
It up. All right. Might have to try that. I might there's more equipment I got to buy now.
Oh, come on. Look here. I'll show you how easy a following board is to make.
Take an old frame, take the top off of it, cut a piece of 2x4, drop or 3/4 plywood.
This is how easy they are to make right here. I've got lots of them. That's a debris board. That's an old debris board. Piece of wood. Once you get this size right here to match your box, you've got it down pat. It's simple.
Then you just run it long through your table saw and stick the wood in there.
Stick wood in there. Stick a staple in it.
And that's just corrugated board right there.
Yeah, that's all it is. That's all you need. You need anything on the other side, you can put whatever you want. If you want to put insulation or whatever, you can. But that blocks them off. It's all you need.
Yeah, I've got the Soda City Market that's downtown that they do on Saturdays. And I just saw Hope talk about Soda City. There are some honey people out there already, but they're not. They are honey producers. They are South Carolina honey producers, but I don't know that they are local honey producers like right here. You know, even when you go in the stores and you got that local produce or local goods rack, it's South Carolina, but it's not Columbia, South Carolina. You know, it's like not 10 minutes that way and you can be at my place and see my bees, you know.
One of our favorite events to do is an event called Cider Days that our city puts on, the city of Lakewood. Our kind of big park is a mile from us, so we do that event and we talk about our honey being local, and I just point and I go, we live a mile that way. Doesn't get any more local than that. And again, it's a part of that, telling that story to your customer. People who are looking for honey really want that raw local honey experience. People want honey for allergy relief, whether you believe that helps allergies or not. People are looking for honey for that. So when people say, you know, I hear that honey helps you with your allergies, I don't say anything about scientific research. I say a lot of people report that. Yeah. And this honey comes from here, 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 or here. So I'm just letting people know that this is raw local honey. And people don't even know what raw means. A lot of people need to be educated on what crystallization is. So for us, getting to sell directly to the customer, I mean, I'm an educator. That's what I love to do. So be able to educate my customers as well, that's part of what I really get out of it as well. And you can tell I'm excited about it when I do it. So people are more to buy from you.
Well, that's the
well, they trust you. See, when they see you, they're putting their trust in you as a person.
Yeah.
You put it up on the shelf, it's not that way.
Yeah, they're going to feed it to their kids.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's another thing. The farm was interested in being able to provide fresh local pollen to their customers. I haven't have you harvested pollen at either of you guys? Do you harvest pollen?
You know, I bought an Apame bottom hive, a bottom cord, because it's got the pollen trap in it. So I'm going to this year, but I'm cautious about selling pollen to people. I've heard stories about people ending up in the emergency room because they're thinking that they're taking it for their allergies and they're not taking the right amounts and they're having terrible reactions.
They OD on it.
Yeah, I don't want to be the reason for that at all. So I'm gonna be harvesting pollen for my own purposes, to make pollen frames for queen rearing or for making my own pollen patties. But I don't want to deal with that stuff.
That's all I do, is just enough for queen rearing, basically, and that's about it.
Have you used a pollen supplement to do that?
I just use pollen when
Right,
I'm
but
queen rearing.
if you don't have that, if I don't have, I mean, I could pull a pollen frame obviously out of a colony, but if I didn't, would Ultra Bee or something like that work the same or no?
I use the global patties
work.
that have real pollen.
Yeah, I throw patties on top of them, but I've got a pollen frame beside them too.
Right.
And if I don't have a pollen frame, that's what that trap pollen's for in the freezer. I'll pack that frame full of that pollen and then stick it in there.
Yeah, I saw Randy Oliver do that with pollen. They put it on there, then they just spray some sugar water on it and let it, they shake it down in the frame, spray some sugar water on it and let it absorb that sugar water and then use it that way. I just didn't know.
I've always got a colony or two that's got way more pollen than what they really need, and I'll pull that out, bring it in here, put it in the freezer. Then when I need it, I got it.
Right.
Yeah, you want there to be an abundance of nutrition when they're raising those queens. If you want the best situation for those queens you're grafting, you've got to make sure that there's pollen there. You've got to make sure there's nectar there. That's one of those things. When I started, I was definitely cutting corners. I don't need that. And that's
Yeah.
definitely not a step to skip.
You
for
learn
sure.
that real quick. You really do, because your
Yeah.
sales ain't near as good.
Yeah, these are okay, but
And
we'll
even the
see.
one you graft from has to be fed well. Or they're going to
Yep.
be dry down in the bottom of the cells. They're not going to have much jelly down there to graft from. So,
Yep.
you want them to be healthy too. So,
Well,
yeah,
guys,
it's a
we've been
key.
going on 4 hours now. It's midnight
Yeah, I'm about
here.
ready.
And I'm gonna call it for tonight. Mark, I appreciate you coming in, spending some time with us. You need to come a little earlier, sir. A little earlier. That's it.
Well, I'm doing work, Bob, trying to get everything done around here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I took off early from what I was doing to make sure I was on the other live stream earlier. And then Brian said, "Are we gonna have a no life beekeeping chat tonight?" And I was like, "Yeah." and then he was like, "Oh, well, I'll come in
And then
a minute."
Yeah.
Yeah, and my
Bob,
kid
by the
came
way,
down from Boulder, so I had to spend some time with my son.
if you need any honey, Bob, I can get it delivered to your town. So you need to keep that in mind.
Okay.
I can probably bring it right there to that pilot.
Oh, right there on North Main. Yeah.
Yeah. And it'll be
Well,
frozen.
we got couple frozen solid. Oh, in the reefer truck.
Yeah. Well, it's gonna come out of a 28-degree warehouse right into that truck. I ain't even got to touch it. I'll have it sit right to you. So free shipping.
Cool. That's
You
always
know.
a plus. We just have to figure out how to transact some money then.
Right.
Yeah,
So keep that in mind, because you still got till what, June?
Well, I got some honey in a bucket in there, and I've got some frames to spin out, but yeah, it'll be a minute for mine.
Yeah.
2 months.
Yeah.
All right,
And I've
guys,
got
I'm gonna
plenty.
get going.
So.
All
All
right.
right,
I'm gonna get
Brian.
going.
Good talking
Good
to you,
talking
buddy.
to you. Yeah, and everyone in the chat. Like I saw Earl was there. Would have been great to see Earl come on too. Everyone in the chat: Silver Gorilla, DC, Son of Juan, Rich, Time is Honey. Have a good night, everyone. Take it easy.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, we'll call it for tonight, and I think Charlie's planning to maybe do one tomorrow night. So, hey, we're going for 7 days a week beekeeping. We just need
There
to
you
start our
go.
own Amazon channel. So
Yeah.
it's on Amazon Prime. You can get a beekeeping live every night of the week.
There you go. All right. Good night, y'all. Good night,
All right,
Bob.
we'll talk to y'all later. Good night.